Good evening and welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another round of absolutely brilliant and gentlemanly racing action in the sim racing magazine GT4 Challenge Season 8, as brought to you on the premier sim racing platform available only on PC, known as iRacing, and proudly powered by none other than Oris Digital. We're here for the commencement of the second half of the season. Another 2 weeks have flown by. There has been a normal break between rounds, but we make our way across the threshold and into the final 4 rounds. We've had 4 brilliant rounds of racing so far, and here we are today for round number 5. But where exactly are we? Well, we're making the first of our 2 visits to Germany for this season, and we begin with the Hockenheimring Baden-Württemberg Grand Prix circuit. Indeed, it is that circuit that when it arrived in 2002, being redesigned by Hermann Tilke, it was met with much disregard and much displeasure. No longer was it the long roar through the local forest, and no longer was it Germany's equivalent to the Monza circuit in Italy, but instead it's been turned into a tantalisingly technical test of a circuit, where for our drivers they need to conquer 2.84 miles of length, which consists of 16 corners. At the core, an interesting contrast. The first half of lap full of long straights, sweeping bends and heavy braking zones. The second half lap all about stadium sections, brimming with corners, and what it means around here, you need to be very smart with the way you approach the circuit. Given the fact that our drivers are not allowed to adjust their setups in this series, this is a fixed setup series, they're going to have to maximise the strengths of their respective cars whilst also mitigate the weaknesses, and that's where the balance performance will really come alive, and you'll get to see a very balanced set of characteristics across all the drivers' cars today, as you'll see the cars that are quick on the straight struggle in the corners, and those that are quick in the corners struggle in the straights. For who exactly is going to put it all together and be smart with the overtakes to become away victorious? Well, that's what we're here to find out. But where are my manners? Allow me to welcome you all to this live broadcast of Circuit Side as you tune in tonight, the one place you can catch all the racing action from Season 8 of the Sim Racing Magazine Championship, and as of course on YouTube at youtube.com, and search for Polish Productions or PWP. And why not subscribe today to stay up to date with all the latest racing action in the series. In the commentator booth you have myself, my name is Paul Walsh, and I'm your commentator for this season. And as we get ready to go racing again today, well, let's take you through our schedule. Times in British Summer Time, that's BST, or Universal Coordinate Time +1, UTC +1. And as we can see, in approximately 13 minutes time, we're going to be seeing our qualifying session take place. 15 minutes as always, and all drives out on circuit, looking to go for pole position as quickly as they can, and indeed it could be a very tight qualifying session today given the balance of this circuit, and we look forward to seeing who exactly is going to be at the top of the tower before we then make our way to the grid at approximately 25 to 9 for our one and only 1 hour feature race. 60 minutes as always, and all drives out there giving it their all, and come the end of it, somebody's going to have to take victory overall in the AM class, but who exactly will it be? Well, as we make our way into this round, as always, we need to bring you up to speed with the story so far, and as we cross over into the second half of the season, what a story we've had, and we've got plenty to talk about from round number 4, last time out on the mountain. Because indeed, as we take a look back at our calendar, we can see on round number 4, on the 14th of April, we were in Australia at the Mount Panorama Circuit, or more commonly known as Bathurst. And what exactly went down on the mountain, or who were our winners, we should really say, in the big headline grabbers? Well, overall, we saw what was an absolutely brilliant race, a very professional race, it should be said, from all of our drivers, whereby there was always a fear, of course, with it being a street circuit, and one of the trickiest street circuits in the world, were we going to see big incidents? Were we going to see blockages on the mountain? Not so at all. We had minimal incidents on the open laps, although there was one driver who did have a spin on lap number 2, that was Guy Edwards, but he did well to recover from the back of the field to take 10th place overall, and we had a packed pack. But what we got to see, the battle for the win, was between Matias Penttilä and Stuart Reynolds, and a poor start for Niels Gore, who had all the pace. He openly admitted it at the end of the racing. Well, if he'd had that better start and hadn't fallen backwards and got caught out fighting for third instead on the open laps, he was frustrated by it, and he had the pace to win. Meanwhile, in the AM class, it was a three-way fight for the win between Mark Johnson, Steve Codman and Lee Berridge, and a lightning start for Lee Berridge, saw him jump all his way to the front of the field, and in the end the Trackmouse Racing drivers had to make sure he couldn't break away. One of them was able to do it very well, and that was none other than Mark Johnson, who in the end gradually overhauled him. So the story ended with, in the AM class, Mark Johnson taking the victory, the first win of his Sim Racing Magazine season career, and well, what an impressive one it was in the end, taking that pole position by almost 3.5 tenths of his teammate Stephen Codman, and after taking the lead back after a very quick launch in Lee Berridge, he was untouchable all the way to distance, and 8.5 seconds of the gap he took the victory, and it indeed was a very emotional post-round interview, and he constantly admitted all the way through the race that he was wondering when the bad luck was going to strike, but that bad luck streak seems to have gone away. Meanwhile, overall and in the pro category, who exactly took victory there? Well, in the end, in that battle between Penttilä and Reynolds, it was none other than Matias Penttilä taking his first win of the season. He's come excruciatingly close on multiple occasions, particularly in Season 7, but he finally got that first win on the board, and in the end, the battle between himself and Reynolds, it may have been 3 attempts in the favour of Reynolds in qualifying, but in the race, he took the lead out of turn number 1 and led most of the opening stint ahead of Reynolds until the first round of pit stops did see what was Reynolds get a little bit closer, but Penttilä was able to stay just ahead in the nick of time, and well, after that, Reynolds did get the jump on him, but Penttilä was able to save the fuel. And in the end, it was all about the undercut strategy, and that enabled Penttilä to get back ahead come the end of the second stint. But goodness me, what a final few laps we had between the two of them, with Reynolds giving it everything to try and make his way past. But a brief brush with the barrier, and sadly for him, he had to fall back to second, and Penttilä was able to hold on to that win. And those were the big headlines, of course, from Bathurst. But here we are today. It is the 28th of April 2026, and we're in Germany for the Hockenheimring Baden-Württemberg. And next time, of course, we'll make our way to United Kingdom for the Thruxton circuit, but more on that later. Let's stay in the here and now, forget the future, stay in the present, and let's tell you a little bit about the standings coming into this round. And as we can see, with our drivers' overall standings, Stuart Reynolds leads to our 95 points, and what understandably left the Bathurst circuit a little bit frustrated at the fact he missed out on the win with a crucial barrier brush, costing him the opportunity to attack Penttilä right at the end of the race. However, what he's got to think about in the bigger picture is the fact another podium finish, a second place, he has extended his lead, now 16 points ahead of Matias Penttilä, who's moved ahead of Daniel Perry. Now at the other end of the spectrum, Daniel Perry falls to third, and it was a frustrating round for him. He expected his Porsche to struggle, and it did struggle indeed. Took 8th on the overall grid and finished in 5th. He had the pace in the corners over the mountain, but had no pace on the straights, and that's what really held him back. But the Paddock Motorsport driver may just be able to put some magic together here today, given the fact he does have that latter half of the lap where the Porsche is going to be quick. Ben Idris Abdullahi and Nils Kaur, they had plenty of fun out there. Once again, the two satellite racing drivers, although it is Nils ahead of Ben, and right now they're there 4th and 5th. And then a further, 6 points behind in 6th place, Matias Tem there, and well, what a story for the Fury Simsport driver, enjoying plenty of battling last time out at the mountain, and as always, enjoying battling with the likes of Ben Idris Abdullahi, although unfortunately both drivers coming to a bit of a blow towards the end of the race, and well, a bit of an unfortunate incident between them, but they've been able to talk about it, and well, in the end, it ended their very close battle for 4th place, but I think both of them looked upon it as a racing incident, and indeed, that's how the stewards looked at it. But still, their rivalry will continue, and it's a further 6 points to Guy Edwards of 6 Motorsport, who, as he mentioned earlier on, after a dismal start to his race at Bathurst, the only driver to have a spin on the opening couple of laps, he did very well to recover to 10th place and salvage some valuable points. Therefore, he stays 5 points ahead of Chris Jennings for Axis Sim Sports, and we do have in 9th Stephen Codman, the leading AM driver Track Mouse Racing, a point ahead of Mark Johnson, but you'll see how it's a little bit different in the AM standings very shortly. Rob Sharp and Mark Johnson are joined on 35 points, but Johnson, with his win, has moved ahead based on result countback, and the Abrus racing driver equal wins to him. We've had multiple different winners across the AM class so far this season, and it's actually brilliant to see, but will we see a new name take victory today? If we were to, would it be Ollie Carwadine, for example, for Rome Worthy, who sits in 12th overall, 1 point ahead of Ian Anderson, the See You Next Tuesday driver, who definitely wasn't afraid to give it everything over the mountain. More on that in a little bit. And Martin Rendell and Paul Goffin complete your top 15 together there on 25 points apiece. Daniel Osler, Lee Berridge, Dennis Van Beelen, Nils Kula and Ryan Penny complete your top 20. And outside the top 20, it's Gary Tour on 13 points, just as Simon Povey, with Jules Gardner and then Heinz Mayer completing the run to 24th. Joint on 7 points, it's Andy Chelt and Kim Such. And then we do see there were no points to their name at the moment in the overall championship. It's Andy Marsden, John Roberts and Matty Wild. But we now make our way to the AM class, and here we can see when the points are adjusted based on the AM finishing positions in class, it's Mark Johnson who leads by 11 points over Rob Sharp. And Johnson, with his first win of the season, taking a very important win that definitely means he now stands tall at the top of the pack. However, he's still got some pressure because of the fact he needs to now build upon that win and try to make it 2 in a row. If he can do so, he'll take control of this championship as we make our way deeper into the second half of the season and rounds start to run out. But Rob Sharp, well, what a race from him in the end. Started 5th, finished 5th in the class. He had a decent qualifying lap given the weaknesses of his Porsche on the straights, and he was only 2 tenths off the back of Ian Anderson's time in an Aston Martin, and Anderson's Aston Martin was absolutely flying, much like Mark Johnson's. But in the end, we saw the battle for 4th place come down between the two drivers, and there was an incredible move into McFinley apart from Ian Anderson, who took the 4th place off him in the end. But what a battle it was between the two of them. It really was all about Anderson's bravery that made the difference over the mountain, and Ollie Carwadine, meanwhile, sits in 3rd, only 2 points points behind the Rowan-worthy driver, who had a bit of a difficult day, struggled in qualifying, taking 9th in the AM class, finished in 7th, but it just did not work out. But he did benefit from a big incident right towards the end of the race on lap 24 between Heinzmatt and Paul Goffin at what was Griffin's Bend, and in the end it saw the two of those drivers almost out the race. In fact, I think they both did have to retire due to that incident, and it was Ollie Carbadino was able to pick up the pieces as a result. Paul Goffin sits a third point behind, and Sim Racing Magazine driver, he's back on the grid today, although he was at a little risk of not being able to make it, but he has been able to make it, and we look forward to seeing him out there. And then Stephen Quadman completes that top 5 for Trackmouse Racing, and well, now he'll be trying to follow in the footsteps of his teammates to try and make it a 1-2 in this championship come the very end. Ryan Penny sits in 6th for Oris Racing, stepped back a little bit last time out, but he's still 2 points ahead of both Ian Anderson and Martin Brendel. And then we do see Jules Gardner and Nils Kula completing the top 10. Behind the X6 Sim Sport drive, it's Lee Berridge there for Boosted Motorsport, and how rapid was he last time out? It was absolutely incredible, that launch he had at the start of the race, but can he follow it up? Can he potentially make his way to the very top of the tower today when it comes to a win? If not, well, he'll be definitely having to make sure he scores the points to stay ahead of Kim Such, and then we do see Heinz Mayer, Andy Schell, Gary Toole, Matty Wild, John Roberts, and Andy Marsden completing the AM Drivers' Championship standings. But then to the Teams' Championship we come, and as we can see here, Fury Sim Sport in control, 20 points ahead currently of Satellite Racing, and the narrative between these two teams, simply put, is that Fury Simsport have remained in first and have reopened their lead to 20 points with Reynolds' 2nd place and Thames 4th place last time out. It wasn't quite a double podium team, nor was it a win for the team. However, they'll feel like winners given the fact they've opened up that gap a little bit more. And meanwhile, Satellite Racing almost matched the points of Fury Simsport, bringing on home what was a very successful set of points, a 3rd and a 6th. However, it would have been even more points gained and ground made if Benedict Abdullahi had won his battle against Tem, but lost out after that contact coming out of the chase chicane. Paddock Motorsport, they sit in 3rd right now, not close to the top 2, but conversely clearing away from the rest of the field. And then we do see 71 points to Trackmouse Racing, who moved all the way from 6th to 4th with the brilliant results for their drivers at the mountain. 6 Motorsport, they've fallen backwards slightly, and right now only hold on to a spot inside the top 5 based on result countback versus Axis Simsports, who in turn have also fallen down the order with Niels Kula absent and Chris Jennings having a huge shunt into the barrier midway through the race. And unfortunately for him, it does mean now they really have rolled back. But what we can see there, rolling forward, is Rowan Worthy on 37 points, 12 ahead of Sim Racing Magazine, Oris Racing only a point behind, and then last but not least in 10th, it's Boosted Motorsport. So that's how the standings stand, but we still got some prizes to give out from round number 4, and here we are then, ladies and gents, and of course, our round 4 medal winners. Firstly, a big congratulations goes to our overall race winner, his first of the season, Matias Penttilä. A brilliant battle between him and Stuart Reynolds, and he got it done in the end, just bringing it on home. And then we saw your AM class race winner of Mark Johnson taking that first win. It's been a long time coming, and everyone was very happy for him when he did cross that finish line as the winner. Indeed, he really was the people's hero of the day there. Nobody could begrudge him for taking that win that's escaped him for so long. And it was also Mark Johnson who came on home with the safest driver award. That, of course, going to the driver with the lowest number of instant points, and on a tight, it's the highest place driver, and he was one of only 3 drivers to take 0 instant points on the mountain. The other 2, they were all in the AM class, and it was his teammate Stephen Quadman who finished behind in 9th overall to Johnson 7th overall, and also we did see 0 instant points of Rob Sharp who finished 12th overall, and congratulations to all 3 of them, but the medal goes to Mark Johnson for being the highest place finisher. And as for the move of the race award, it went to Ian Anderson, and well, ladies and gentlemen, sometimes there's moves that need no description. So you know what we're going to do? We're going to go quiet and let you see just exactly how Ian Anderson made it the move of the race award. And to give you some context, this was at McPhillary Park for 4th place in the AM class versus Rob Sharp. Well, ladies and gentlemen, if that is not a move that leaves you speechless in terms of how it's done, I don't know how you're going to be impressed by a move. That was Ian Anderson diving up the inside into McPhillary Park. You couldn't have asked for a more incredible move to take the move of the race award for round number 4 of the SRM GT4 Change Season 8. An incredible one at that. But without further ado, we now move on to the present. Congratulations to Ian Anderson, to all our medal winners. We must come on to our host circuit for today. It is, of course, course, the Hockenheimring Baden-Württemberg's Grand Prix circuit, located at the Motterdam in Hockenheim in the Baden-Württemberg state of Germany. A big thank you to iRacer.com, not just for their brilliant simulator on which we host this series, but also the track maps contained within it. And as we can see here, this track map, two-dimensional, much like the circuit. There's barely any elevation change here. The only elevation change you will see will be at turn number 12. You've got a lot of camber through the corner, and also the run from 13 to 15, where there's a slight decline in elevation. But other than that, this is a very flat circuit, so what it makes up for in that is that you've got plenty of corner variety. You've got the sweeping bend, the turn on one to open up that Nord curve, where it's going to be quick through the right-hander, and a charge down towards Einfahrt Parabolica. Then you do have a hairpin followed up by a chicane sweeper through turns 2, 3, and 4, and then through Parabolica, the long left-hander, which will be flat out all the way down towards the Spitzkehrer hairpin at turn number 6. A heavy braking zone, the main overtaking circuit opportunity, and we'll see our drivers come heavy on the brakes there as they make their way through the hairpin, and then onwards they'll go to the second half of the lap. And immediately you can see now we're going into stadium sequences. The first of them, the Mercedes Stadium, at turns 7, 8, 9, and 10, where it's a right-hand sweeper followed up by a 90-degree left-hander heavy braking zone, and it will be for the switchback at turns 9 and 10. A short sprint will take our drivers up to the Mobile 1 curve at turn number 11, and it's into the second stadium sequence, or the stadium sequence known as where Vettel got it all wrong in the rain all those many years ago in his battle with Lewis Hamilton for victory in the Formula 1 Grand Prix. We end up parked in the gravel at turn number 12 when he was leading so comfortably. But hopefully you won't see anybody take a trip to the gravel there as they make their way for the sweeping left-hander, where it's plenty of road camber, and it will be for the switchback at turns 13 and 14, while they make their way through Sud curve at turns 15 and 16 to complete lap and do it all over again. A quick reminder of the rules in terms of how we go racing. Well, this is a fixed setup series, and drivers are running the iRacing fixed setup with fuel loads restricted to 42%. Qualifying, as you'll see shortly, involves an open format, which means drivers can come and go as they please, but they are all out of the circuit together. As for our race, they shall commence by a double valve rolling start as a tradition of GT4 racing, and there are no mandatory pit stop requirements at all, so you choose when you need to pit. Each driver has one fast spare available should they need to use it, and the driver shall receive a drive-through penalty if they accumulate 8 or more instant points. Should they get to 25, they will be disqualified, and all race tuning shall be conducted post-race. But with haste, let's make our way back to the circuit, ladies and gentlemen, because I hear the roar out my Conte booth window of drivers making their way out for qualifying. Indeed, perfect timing here in 15 minutes is a go. And with that, drivers make their way out the pit lane just like that, although Dennis Van Wieland's already picked up a black flag for an unsafe pit exit. I suspect cut off the limiter a little bit too soon. So he's going to tow back to the pit lane, but I get the feeling that black flag may stay with him. We'll have to wait and see. In fact, no, it has been removed. So Van Wieland there being a little bit too quick on the gun to jump off the limiter, and well, he has to go back into the pit lane and go back out once again. He's got to be able to prove that he can leave the pit lane safely, and I think he definitely can, but unfortunately just a bit too much enthusiasm carrying it forward. But as we do see Daniel Perry following on down, the RD Sim Sport Ford Mustang there, and Matias Penttilä. Well, what can we expect today when it comes to qualifying? Well, the big expectation here is the fact that this is going to be one of those qualifying sessions where you do ideally want to get it right, but if you don't get it quite right, you've always got the opportunity to do some battling. Now, understandably, the challenge with doing some battling is the fact it's going to cost you some time around the circuit, but we can expect plenty of battles, we can expect plenty of excitement, and well, qualifying, if you can get on pole, you'll be very pleased to do so, but you'll need to try and make an early breakaway, because this circuit definitely invites overtaking. It does have the classic Hermann Tilke characteristic, and you could say that this is the template circuit for Hermann Tilke design circuits after 2002, and that is it is a very wide circuit with a lot of these braking zones providing the opportunities to go at least 2, if not 3, perhaps even 4 wide. It's not quite the behemoth of the circuit of the Americas, which you could say in a way is Hermann Tilke's masterpiece, or what is his demonstration of bringing it all together, but this was one of the earlier designs of Tilke, which definitely became the template. The only thing it is missing is the characteristic of a 1 kilometre back straight, which we don't have here. We have nowhere near along that stretch, although we do have a long stretch coming out of turns 2 through to 6. However, it's nowhere near a kilometre. I do believe it's the best part of around 6/10 of a kilometre, if my memory serves me correctly. But as Kim Such makes way onwards, he won't be thinking about kilometres, normally be thinking about miles. He'll be thinking about how he can deliver those laps and pick up every mile an hour as he makes way on through turn number 11. So what cars could go quite strong here? Well, of course, we do know that Mercedes has proven to be a very strong car based on the current balance points in the GT4 category. It has been one of those cars that definitely has had its strengths, and its weaknesses, well, it does have some out there, where it doesn't necessarily show them as easily as some of the others. Its key weaknesses, of course, being what is low gear torque, particularly in first and second gear, where it's got so much torque over those rear wheels. Front engine rear wheel drive, it means the rear of the car is very light going through the corners, and well, you do not want to be in too low a gear, because otherwise you'll spin up those rear tyres and the rear will come very loose. But on the straights, it's a very quick car. It's also got the ability to save some fuel, and that is its advantage versus the likes of the Ford Mustang. It's being piloted by Steve Codman as he makes way towards turn 1 for his first flying lap. This Ford Mustang is the king of the straight. Oh, it's a very heavy car, the American muscle car. And as he gets ready to go into those braking zones, he knows he's just carrying that little bit more weight into the corners, and he's got to be careful not to overheat those front brakes and with it the front tyres. And if he does so, well, he's at risk, of course. If he leans too much into the braking zone, he may lean into the ABS, the end-stop braking system, and when you do, that causes the brakes to lift off slightly in order to prevent them from locking. That's what an ABS system does, and therefore you actually understeer deeper into the corner. So naturally, you actually put more wear into the tyres, particularly the outside front tyre, because all the weight is pitched onto that tyre as you then try to turn into the corner. So it's a double up effect, essentially. When you trigger the ABS, you want to briefly trigger it at most, but you don't want to do any more than that, because otherwise it will hurt the front tyres massively, particularly the outside front tyre as you go through the corner. But at the other end, if we've got the powerhouse of the Mercedes and the Ford Mustang, what about some of the other machines that can do well in the corners? Of course, we do have a Porsche Cayman 718 GT4s, one of which is Daniel Perry's from Paddock Motorsport, and the Fury Simsport sister team there. As you can see, the logos on the side of the car indicating they're part of Fury Simsport. Well, as he makes his way onwards right now, Daniel Perry, who's going to get his first lap of the board. I do believe several drivers are, and that's going to be a 45.977, a 10th out of Matias Penttilä, and that's going to be all about the corners, although this open half lap is where it will struggle, in the fact that this car does not have the top end speed, but it'll be grateful to pick up the toe of another car. So expect the Porsche drivers to hug the back of the likes of the Mercedes and the Fords in the open half lap, and it'll be in the second half lap with a try to make the big jump. As he makes his way on through the corners, well, meanwhile, we do look to the Aston Martin of Andy Chell. Well, the Aston Martin has been that car that's a little bit of an oddball, in the fact it has plenty of acceleration. It is very powerful going uphill, as we saw at Bathurst, from the likes of Ian Anderson and Mark Johnson. However, this car also does have quite a nimble approach through the corners. The only downside of it is the fact it does have a very tight gearbox, whereby all the gears from first, second, third and fourth, they are so closely wound that actually where most drivers coming into the likes here of turn number 12 will normally go into that corner in second gear, perhaps third, depending on the choice of the car. In this car, you will be in a higher gear typically. You may even be in fourth, and we'll get on board or two with a driver shortly, and we'll get to see those differences. But I suspect it's going to be third gear for everybody there. So from the hairpins is probably the better example, as Andy Chell just loses the rear end there covering Stuart curve. It comes to a sliding halt, but well done to him for getting that stopped in time, and we'll just parks up there, making sure not to impede anyone, because otherwise that would be a bit of a crime. But Chell there having a bit of cold tyres, catching him out, and well, making his way back to speed now, and well, he's going to weave from side to side here just to get himself settled down once again. But as he does so, well, what about the other car out there, the fifth GT4 that we do have? That is Lee Berridge's BMW M4 GT4 Evo, the G82 model, of course, but refined. Coming into 2026 in the GT4 racing category with some aerodynamic refinements, and well, the big old kidney bean grille. Well, I don't think it's kidney beans anymore. Hamilton looks more lung-shaped, to be fair, with the amount of area it'll be taking in. And Lee Berridge right now very quick. We know how quick this car is, but also it can be very deft through the corners. But the downside of the BMW then, who is so strong on the straights and quick in the corners, is the fact that this car is very loose over its rear axle, which means that it is very susceptible, particularly through direction changes, quick-fire ones, such as turns 9 and 10. It is susceptible to the driver having the car cut loose on them. So therefore, you have to drive at a bit of constraint, and also you've got to be careful of the fact that you will heat those tyres, that those rear tyres do get a bit hot on that BMW, and tyre degradation can be an Achilles heel for it. But then we do have a sixth car out there, of course. We have the McLaren 570S GT4, only one of them here today, and it's in the hands of Guy Edwards in the number 7. Unfortunately, his teammate of Gary Toole not able to make this round due to personal circumstances. I do believe Gary will be on the grid later on this season, but Guy Edwards out there, and well, he's showing you right now the fact that McLaren can be very quick. It is, I like the Aston Martin, very quick out the corners, but also it's very nimble through the corners, and in race trim, it is very efficient on fuel with this car. Remember, they all have different refueling rates in the pit lane. That balances the cars out as well, and they also do have slightly different sized fuel tanks. But of course, we've restricted all those fuel tanks to a similar amount, and that means it really comes down to our driver's ability here as part of our very balanced setup series. But Stuart Reynolds right now, after what is the best part of 7 minutes, has taken the initial provisional pole there, 1 minute 45.6 flat, and well, he's only 7.5 hundredths ahead of Daniel Perry. But this is what we read about balanced performance at a circuit that is a very balanced one. We are seeing two very different machines almost equal in time, and well, now there's going to be other mitigating factors here which could make or break a lap. One of them is get a draft of another driver, and that's what Perry's trying to do here, following Matias Penttilä on round as the RD Simsport 4 Mustang driver knows that he's being pursued. And where does Perry want that toe? He wants it on the first half lap. If he can get it on all the straights before he gets to turn 6 and even up towards turn number 8, he will gain a couple of attempts, and that could really make or break the difference. He comes across the timeline that time. Does he improve? The answer is no. Matias Penttilä does improve, however. Meanwhile, Guy Edwards goes the fastest now, 45.298, 3 tenths quicker than Stuart Reynolds. I suspect we're going to see even quicker times out there. Meanwhile, Ian Anderson right now looking very impressive in the See You Next Tuesday car, but of course that livery on the car being a dedicated tribute to the Newbridge Racing GT racing car, which did feature in the British GT Championship, the best part, if I remember correctly, about 3 to 4 years ago. But as he makes his way on around, he's looking at very quick, and Anderson was ferocious at Bathurst. But look who is almost as quick as him, Rob Sharp. And well, those two, they went toe-to-toe for 4th place at Bathurst. Could we see a story today that go toe-to-toe again? What it'll be this time for the AM win? We'll have to see, as Martin Rendell, meanwhile, is 3rd in the class, and Mark Johnson's still got a lot of time to find. Well, how about that? They've all got time to find out there. We do have 24 drivers here today. Those who've yet to get a lap of the board, Heinz mad, but as soon as I say that, he does, so he's been listening in. And their own worthy driver moves up to 17th place there in a 46.862. And it's just Jules Gardner right now as he makes one around. And well, the established photographer, of course, he does most of the photography for this series. A lot of the images you have seen today in the build-up to this broadcast are courtesy of this brilliant man. And also he does a lot of photography at his local race circuits, particularly most recently one of his local karting circuits. And definitely if you're looking for a photographer for what be real life or sim racing events, look no further than Jules Gardner as he goes across the line. And well, he's able to sneak ahead of Andy Marsden there, but they'll be battling to be not last on the grid as we do look to Andy Marsden as he heads towards the timeline. Does he improve? Not quite now. The Sim Racing Magazine drives always looking to move on the up and up. But he comes on around. If you are in the YouTube chat, don't be shy. Feel free to say hi and let us know how you're doing today, ladies and gentlemen. Because, of course, you had a difficult start to the week. Perhaps it's got to Tuesday and you're already thinking, well, I'm not even halfway through the week yet. We'll turn that frown upside down with this broadcast today. And what will help do that is getting an onboard lap. So let's jump aboard here with Guy Edwards. Making his way through the opening corner of Nord Curve there. Make sure to keep 2 wheels on that exit curve within track limits. 4th gear all the way through, and now flat out he'll go up towards turn number 2. Getting ready to go onto the brakes, braking there about 125 metres from corner apex all the way down to the 2nd gear. Nice early apex there, using the rear rotation of the car, but takes the sausage curve a bit too high on that curbing, and therefore it does mean it unsettles the rear of the car. So for Edwards, he's now lost about 2 miles an hour coming out of that sequence of Iron Parabolica, and he's got to make his way down towards Spitzacara trying to make up the time. But how can you do so when it's flat out? Well, you've got to make it up in the second half of the lap now as he gets ready to brake in towards the hairpin. Looks his left-hand side for the 150 metre board. That's where he'll brake. Comes all the way down the gearbox to first gear. Such a tight 180-degree corner. And coming out, it's now flat out all the way up towards the Mercedes Stadium. Now coming onwards here, you'll notice that he keeps the car nice and over to the left-hand side to open up turn number 7. Gentle steering input in here as much as possible to save speed. And now over to the right-hand side he goes. And onto the brakes of Mercedes bend about 120 metres from corner apex. Run his way out of the corner, down to 2nd gear, over to left-hand side to open up turn number 10, as he makes way through 9, now 10, the dip in the curve there, catching out drivers, and making sure not to let a tyre fall into the V-ditch. Out to turn number 10, that's how they get it wrong. But in towards Mobile 1 curve he goes here, braking as late as he dares, 75 metres from quarter apex, carry the speed in 4th gear, keep it on the exit curve to be in track limits, and now over to the right-hand side, braking at the 50 board there, coming all the way down to 2nd gear, hold the throttle, and as you feel the car starting to wind up, full throttle your way out, they use the camera of the road through 30 to 14, let the car drift over to the left to open up the first part of Sud curve, or South curve as it translates it to from German to English, and going through the last 2 bends then, smooth line there, you've got to join the dots together, and for Guy Edwards just runs a little bit wide, the car bouncing around on the exit, but what's it going to be for Edwards this time? Does he improve his overall pole lap? The answer is no. He comes close to it, but he's still got some time to find as Matias Penttilä. Well, it does look as though there it's going to, if you scratch my back, I'll scratch yours, which is the fact that Edwards did benefit from a distant tow from Penttilä on his fastest lap earlier on, and now Penttilä is having the opportunity here to follow Guy Edwards around. But meanwhile, Rob Sharp has struck back versus Ian Anderson. He has found a 10th over him. Goodness me, this is a very tight AM qualifying session. I think we're going to see one of the tightest AM qualifying sessions of the season here today, and what we're seeing what is a driver who has qualified towards the front previously versus a driver who's had a lot of promise. We saw it at Imola. We also did see it, of course, on the streets of Long Beach, but it's never quite worked out for this man of Ian Anderson by comparison. And indeed, only today we're now starting to see that pace really come alive. But they've all been practicing hard here. We really do have a lively AM class, and I think they've all taken inspiration. If Mark Johnson can finally net his first win, then anybody can. And that's not to be rude about it, but right now there's so many heroic stories in this AM class, and they're all already push each other on. We've got such a friendly AM class as well. They're all congratulating each other when they get out the cars. And right now, as Mark Johnson comes on through a little bit of oversteer, they're coming up the hairpin, but he doesn't look too happy at the moment. I wonder whether he's still trying to get used to the gearing of this Aston Martin for this circuit, as we do get deafened in our right ear cup here in the commentary booth from what is the sound of Stephen Codman's Ford Mustang going through. I'm not complaining, to be fair, ladies and gentlemen. If I'm going to lose my hearing, I'd rather lose it to a 5-litre V8 than anything else. But as the driver's coming around, Mark Johnson right now, and there's only 3 minutes left to go in this qualifying session. It's not much time, and time is of the essence. But speaking of time, well, we've got some time to take a look on board another driver's lap as Paul Goffin comes on around here for Sim Racing Magazine. making his way out of turn number 12 in towards 13 and 14 and trying to shadow Ian Anderson as much as possible. But here comes Anderson through the last 2 corners. He runs as wide as he dares to dream to do, and now onto line he goes here with 2 minutes to go, and let's get an onboard lap with your Aston Martin driver. So the See Next Tuesday driver makes his way down towards turn 1. The Scotsman flying into the opening bend. Onto the brakes early. They're braking 100. In fact, no, goes straight on. He decides he doesn't want to go any further. So that's going to be an aborted lap from him, but understandable. So he thinks he's done everything he can. He can't go any quicker as Goffin and Codman both improve. Now Mark Johnson comes around, and here goes Johnson then for a flying lap of his own. And this is going to be his penultimate flying lap. Let's get a view. So breaking his way there, 75 minutes and quarter apex, touch the sausage curb, no more than that at the apex, and now carry all the speed up towards turn number 2. Keep an eye on the gears here as well. You'll notice a difference compared to the lap we had on board with our McLaren pole sitter as he makes his way into the braking zone in towards turn number 2, and we're down to 3rd gear, not 2nd there, and that's the tight gearing of the Aston Martin for you. Now coming out to turns 3 and 4 as Guy Edwards has been dethroned from the top by Stuart Reynolds by a 10th. Will Johnson right now continues to be our focus as he goes flat out all the way down towards the hairpin. And as he makes his way towards that braking zone, what's it going to be this time as he gets ready to bring the car over to the left-hand side? And the answer to that question is going to be braking at about 106 meters from apex. In fact, he's braking quite early as Johnson. I wonder whether he feels that the brakes this Aston Martin aren't giving him the confidence right now. That's a weakness. There's so many notices they can exploit it. The fact he's on the brakes just that little bit earlier. But still smooth run there through the hairpin and now into Mercedes Arena. He comes on Mercedes Stadium, we should say. And braking it in towards turn number 8, braking at 100 meters from quarter apex down to 3rd gear. And you can see the rear of the car really coming loose there under braking. And now through turns 9 into 10, as soon as he comes off the brakes, the rear of the car wants to slide round. He's got a lot of rotation, but he's going to have to drive this. It's rear wheel drive. Sorry, rear engine, I would say. But coming in towards turn number 11, making his way through Bubble World Curve, breaking out 100 meters to the corner apex, just smoothing it over the curb. He's very smooth, is Johnson, and smooth normally means fast, but right now he's still got to go a bit faster than this as he comes through turn number 12, holding 3rd gear. Lovely exit out of the bend, really able to get on the throttle nice and early, but in the end, the rear right tyre dips beyond the curb, and it causes a little bit of rebound on the suspension, and the Track Mouse racing car goes around. And with that, I don't think we're going to see Johnson improve anymore. As meanwhile, Stephen Codman, his teammate, does improve. Goes up into 2nd in hour. 45.97%, that's 10th overall, and right now the clock is only 10 seconds away from going to 0, and with that we go to overtime. If anybody's on a lap, they're allowed to finish it, but other than that, you're not allowed to do another one. As Neil's score improves there to 6th place at 45.736, we have a black flag for Daniel Osler. That will be, I believe, a track limit, unless I'm mistaken, so he won't be allowed to finish this lap. He will need to come into the pit lane, and Stuart Reynolds does the same here. So we've got a black flag for Reynolds, we've got a black flag for Osler. I've not quite seen that before, and therefore, unless they've done something a bit naughty, Stephen Codman's put it in the wall somewhere from here to by ear. But meanwhile, we've still got drivers out there on laps. So who's going to be the next driver to come around? Well, Heinz Mayer, cross the line only moments ago. And he stayed 17th for the end, or what translates into 7th place in AM at best. Paul Goffin makes his way on through, but I don't think he's going to be the first driver to get towards the timeline. In fact, yes, he will be, apart from this one driver out there who's going to beat him to the punch, and that is Matias Penttilä. Here is your RD Simsport driver, currently just hanging on to the 2nd row of the overall grid. The Ford Mustang driver is 4 tenths off the overall pole time, 2 tenths off Matias Tem, and only what is 400ths quicker than Ben Idris Abdullahi. So right now, he's on a bit of a back foot here in the Ford Mustang. I think it's the weight of this car that's just holding him back, and in the end he holds himself back by coming into the pit lane. He does not go any quicker. So meanwhile, it's not going to be an improvement from him, the winner from last time out. But what's it going to be here for Paul Goffin? Can he improve as he makes his way through Sud Curve? Well, he thinks he's on a quicker lap. In fact, his middle sector's been as good as his previous best. This final sector's looking quick, but he runs a little bit wide. Does that still count? Well, he makes his way towards the timeline here. It was right on the limit if so, and Goffin cross line. He does not improve. It was a valid lap, but he doesn't go any quicker. Meanwhile, we do see Lee Berridge comes across the line. He does not improve, and well, I think they're missing his braking zone. He's going to go straight to the barrier there, and the team wants to put that back together very quickly. Neil's score comes towards the line for Satellite Racing. He's 7th at the moment, but where does he go from 7th? And the answer is he stays there. He does not go any further. And meanwhile, we've got a couple more cars coming into the pit lane, and we've got Ben Idris Abdullah. He heading towards the line. No, he heads towards the pit limit line instead, and everyone else does come into the pits, including John Roberts there, who we need to give a big shout out to because he's back on the grid once again. Good to see him back out there. So that is qualifying complete, ladies and gentlemen, but as all the drivers cool them down and head into the pit lane, Stuart Reynolds returns to the top by 1/10 over Guy Edwards. Edwards having one of his best qualifying points of the season at McLaren, starting on the front row, and then we'll see Matias Tem and Matias Penttilä. The battle of Matias is line up on the 2nd row. You've got to go back to 8th for your AM pole sit. Rob Sharp taking pole position, and well done to him. And in the end, he was only 300ths quicker than Stephen Codman, but the terms separated by Daniel Osler, and they will round out the top 10. In 11th, it'll be Ian Anderson, best of the rest overall, but 3rd in the AM class. He couldn't quite take the pole position in the end, but expect Anderson to be quick from the start of this race. He definitely showed the pace when it came to qualifying, but a great session, no doubt about it. And well, some big surprises out there. Lee Berridge quite a way down. We'll have to wait and see how he fits into the picture, given the fact he'll be starting all the way down there in 20th place. And this is a big grid here today, 24 drivers, so therefore it's going to be a bit of a challenge. But, of course, we don't go racing, we don't start that challenge unless we have our warm-up session. Now, we do have the best part of 5 minutes here for our drivers to have a bit of a comfort break if they need to make themselves some adjustments to the car. Of course, they can't really adjust too much on the car. The only thing they are allowed to adjust is the brake bias on it. So that's the one thing you can tweak inside the car. On the steering wheel, there's a little button that you can turn, and you can also tweak it in the pit lane if needed. But otherwise, well, now our drivers will make their way back out there just to acclimatise to the conditions. Speaking of which, we haven't really talked about the weather today. What exactly are we looking at weather-wise? And the answer to that question is, we've got quite a nice day here in Germany. Typical temperatures for the time of year, particularly with it being spring. And what we can see is that currently we have 19 degrees centigrade ambient temperature and 22 degrees centigrade track temperature with partial cloud. Now, this track temperature will gradually come up as the day goes on, and particularly given the fact we are still in the morning and we're heading towards lunchtime. Indeed, our racing is expected to conclude around just before midday. And that means this circuit will get a little bit warmer, but it should not get to the point whereby drivers' tyres will start to melt. Not literally, of course, but what we mean by that is there is a natural threshold whereby normally when you see track temperature go above 40 degrees centigrade, you will start to see that our drivers have to be very careful with their tyres because the tyres will be overheating. The core of this tyre, the GT4 tyre, you do not want to let that go typically above 100 degrees centigrade. At a push, if you go above 110 or 120, you are starting to have really ripped the tyre to pieces essentially in such hot conditions, which thankfully we won't be seeing anything like that. Although I suspect towards the end of the race in those heavy braking zones, we will see some tyre edge temperatures go above 100 degrees centigrade, particularly for the heavier front engine rear wheel drive cars on the braking, such as the BMW M4 and the Ford Mustang. But we've definitely got some nice weather conditions here today, and that will be conducive to some good racing. And well, how do you cut this race strategically? We are expecting this to be a two-stop race, much like most of the races we have seen. In fact, all the races so far this season have been two-stoppers, although there was the three-stopper, of course, at Imola for some drives, particularly for the Aston Martins, such as Mark Johnson, and that's why we did see the fuel loads increased in the M4 cars in order to make sure the Aston Martin was not getting an unfair disadvantage in the fact that essentially it was having to save so much fuel to make the two-stop that the Aston Martin drivers were having to drive a couple of seconds off the theoretical pace they should be able to achieve. As we do see Ian Anderson there showing you what happens when you carry a lot of speed into the Nord curve, and the rear of the car has not settled down, but he did very well to catch that. And if he hasn't considered playing cricket, I definitely recommend it, because if he can catch a car like that, he can definitely catch a fast-flying cricket ball. But right now, will he be bowled out today, or will he strike it all the way through to the stumps? We'll have to see, because of course he definitely was very quick in qualifying, but I think he will be a little bit irritated that he didn't quite take the top spot in AM, but he was close to it, and that's where he's got to inspire confidence from, is the fact that he definitely has some solid pace here today. As Anderson comes on down in the 455, well, he'll be happy with that. Guy Edwards, of course, now he's going to be one to watch out for, given the fact we know that McLaren can be very quick, but strategically it really can be a bit of an evil doer in the fact it can do a lot with regards to fuel saving. It can be very quick in the pit lane, and that was demonstrated, of course, last season, that brilliant battle for the championship between Stuart Reynolds and his very close rival all the way through, and that was your run-up last season of none other than, as his name escapes me, the Apex and Chicane Mrs. Drivers. We do see their Guy Edwards missing his own chicane and going flying on around, but gets the car back pointed in the right line. And, well, his name did begin with Alex, but his surname is escaping me, unfortunately, ladies and gentlemen. I do apologise for that, my memory just being a little bit short today. Of course, I've got the best memory in the world, and, well, hopefully that's not a sign of anything medical, but definitely it's not, and the name just escaping me. But I can tell you one thing, we have seen this McLaren look very good over time, and we are just going to double-check and make sure we get that name right, because we don't want to get it wrong. And it was Alex Gall. There we go. I was going to say it was something beginning with a G, and Alex Gall, of course, your runner-up last season, one of your runners-up. Well, missing the season finale, sadly, due to personal circumstances in Season 7, but he didn't miss an opportunity to take on Reynolds for that fight, and showed, particularly at the likes of Circuit Zandvoort in Season 7, just how efficient that McLaren can be, not just with regards to its tyres, but also its fuel. But as Ian Anderson makes his way onwards, and we do see Martin Rendell putting a lap on the board as well, well, these laps will mean nothing. They will purely be there for the purposes of what is just to make sure our drivers are feeling set and all ready to go. And, of course, we're all itching to go, because we're not too far away from going green flag racing. And well, in preparation for it, we're going to take a quick sip of water. And if you're sat there right now, hovering on the fence, do you need to go to the bathroom? Do you need to get a top of water? Go do it now. Do not regret not doing it, because you won't step away when we do go green flag racing today. And there's going to be plenty of racing action, that I can assure you. And therefore, just before it all gets underway, I'm definitely going to heed my own advice and take a quick sip of water. And so, ladies and gentlemen, as I definitely do get topped up, and I've had my own personal pit stop with regards to this broadcast, well, right now, we get ready, because without further ado, the clock strikes 0, the warm-up is complete, it's time to make our way to the grid, and who exactly is going to lead the way in round number 5 of the Sim Racing Magazine GT4 Challenge Season 8, brought to you from the Hockenheimring Baden-Württemberg today? Well, let's find out over 60 minutes of racing action. And so, as our drivers make the way to the grid, this is how they'll all line up for one and only race. It is Stuart Reynolds who takes pole position for Fury Simsport by the best part of a 10th over 6 Motorsports Guy Edwards' season best qualifying performance. From the defending champion and the upstart in the McLaren, it is then Matias Penttilä for Fury Simsport line up directly behind his teammate, and knowing that here today he wants to try and make it a 1-2 and try to break away from his rivals in the championship standings. But meanwhile, starting fourth alongside, and it's going to be Matias Penttilä, the battle of the Matiases, and the flying Finn for RD Simsport, looking to try and make it 2 wins in a row after his stellar win at Bathurst last time out. Benny just Abdullah, he starts in 5th for Satellite Racing, and well, he's got a bit of work to do there from the 3rd row of the grid, but of course, he'll be joined there by Daniel Perry for Paddock Motorsport, and can the Porsche try and make his way forward, being the highest portion of the grid. Niels Kaur starts 7th today for Satellite Racing, directly behind his teammate Idris Abdullahi, but in the company of the pole sitter in 8th place. It's Rob Sharp for Bathurst Racing. He'll be absolutely proud of that achievement, but can the Scotsman now go one further and return to the top of the podium? Daniel Osler begins the day in 9th for Paddock Motorsport, ahead of Stephen Codman for Trackmouse Racing, who was just beaten to the punch for Ampole, and the gap between the trio there only 300ths. But outside that top 10, starting 11th, is going to be Ian Anderson for See You Next Tuesday, as we do have 2 drivers who have towed to the pit lane. Matias Penttilä and Daniel Osler have both towed. I wonder what's happened there. Are there technical issues with the cars? Well, Anderson starts 11th ahead of Chris Jennings for Axis Simsports, and then we do see Martin Rendell starting 13th place there, with a good qualifying points from him at 4th in AM class. There's Sam Beelan struggled in qualifying for Chicane Online Racing, starts 14th, but the Dutchman will be followed up by the Ampere Paul Goffin for SRM, and Mark Johnson for Trackmouse Racing, who definitely had his own struggles in qualifying. Not a happy day in the office for him. 17th, it's going to be Heinz Mann for Romeworthy, ahead of John Roberts for Boosted Motorsport, and then we do see Ollie Carwadine for Romeworthy and Lee Berridge for Boosted Motorsport, completing your top 20. The Boosted team have definitely got to get a bit of a move on today, given where they've qualified, and then outside the top 20, starting 21st, it's going to be Kim Such, Oris Racing, ahead of Quaymas Motorsports, Andy Chell, and then bringing up the rear on the final round of the grid, it's going to be Jules Gardner for Sim Racing Magazine and his teammate of Andy Marsden, and that's how they all start, ladies and gentlemen. But as I say, we've had a bit of drama already. Matias Tim and Daniel Osler both going to the pit lane before we go green flag racing. We're not quite sure what the story is there. We are going to try and find out if we can. And as everybody makes the way through, well, all these drivers looking all set and ready to go. But this formation lap won't be lasting too long, and Stuart Reynolds letting the safety car peel away, and he's giving it some space here as he gets ready to go green for 60 minutes of racing action. And Stuart Reynolds takes us away then for an hour of racing at the Hockenheimring Baden-Württemberg. A great start there for Reynolds. In fact, drops Guy Edwards entirely. Benny just Abdullahi on the inside, then in towards Nord Curve. Goes for it, but Guy Edwards attacks back round the outside. And you can see right now this fighter has already bought the lead by a gap of a second. So as they make the way down towards Owenfart Parabolica, Reynolds to be feeling as though he's got this absolutely right. He's now got to a braking zone and the run to next corner. But look behind, and that is going to be Rob Sharp battling with Ian Anderson. Anderson had a lightning start as well. Stephen Codman's fallen behind, but it's battles aplenty. As Guy Edwards still coming back at Idris Abdullahi. The battle for second place is taking precedent already as they all make the way out of the hairpin and onwards. But there's a car around. That's Mark Johnson. Johnson's got around, but he's missed the barrier just about. We've got to reverse that back onto the road. There's no other thing for it. But as they all come down towards the Spitzker hairpin for the first time, the fight for second here, it's going to be Penttilä on the inside. Meanwhile, Idris Abdullahi on the outside, and Perry and Edwards are being relegated backwards. But in fact, Perry's been relegated upwards, or promoted is probably the better word we should say. And it is Edwards who's loose now right at the start of the race today. Rob Sharp still fighting, but he's clear of Ian Anderson for now at least. But Anderson is still on the back of him, and Martin Rendell and Stephen Codman are there. Paul Goffin's also moved up as well, so the top 5 and AM are all very close together, and this is an absolutely brilliant start for the AM classes. We're going to see a bit of fighting. Oh, that's going to be a bit of an escape road take, and the boosted motorsport cars, they come into contact with each other, and in the end, I believe that was Lee Berry's jumping over the apex of turn number 8. I think he missed his braking zone then, and the only place he could go was the inside of the corner, and unfortunately, he did collect John Roberts there. They're going to have a conversation about that afterwards, and Heinz Mayer get involved in that alongside Kim Such. But right now, Mayer up into 7th place there, and as Kim Such follows him, and Andy Schell getting in the place, his left, right, centre, as Mayer runs very wide there, coming out of Mobile World Curve, and I think some damage to the car as well, and that's not going to help with the gravel of the tyres either. He's going to lose a lot of grip, and right now he won't be able to abuse it coming through the bend, as Matias Penttilä starting from the pit lane. Well, he's had to make his way through the field here. Well, I don't think that was by design he went to start from the pit lane. I think perhaps he missed the starting procedure, and therefore there's perhaps an issue with the car. As he makes his way around, Daniel Oster having to do the same. Both drivers losing out in that gridded procedure, and right now the Paddock Motorsport driver goes sideways through the corner, takes a bit too much apex curve. Oh, goodness me! And the SRM cars have to take a base of action. In the end, Jill's gone and goes to the barrier. Andy Marston just about survived it. And unfortunately for Gardner, it's all gone wrong. But meanwhile, we come back to the AM lead battle. Here is Martin Rendell trying to go around the outside of Ian Anderson. Rob Sharp's breaking away. And Anderson right now under big pressure here. We put the pressure on Sharp at the start. But now Rendell says it's my turn to do that. Meanwhile, Stephen Codman followed on here. And I think right now he'll be just watching this closely and thinking of a track mouse race to how exactly do I get past. Well, the problem is he's got all the speed on the straights, but Anderson's going to cover the inside off here to attack Martin Rendell. So at this point, he's got nowhere theoretically to go other than the outside. Anderson all in here. Remember, if you're on a tight line into the hairpin, you've got to respect the fact you're not going to be able to get the power down on exit when you're too wide. Otherwise, you'll understeer into the drive on the outside, and they won't be too pleased and will be throwing the 2 kilogram Booker stewarding at you. As they make the way through turn number 7 right now, we can see there Anderson and Codman side by side. Codman elbowed out a little bit, but Codman risking it on the outside there to be fair. You've got to take the risk to be out there, but Anderson goes deep as a result. Goes very deep, and Rendell goes round. I don't believe it. And in the end, he hurries his way off the road, but almost hits the barrier for it. But well done, quick reactions from him. And Dennis Van Beelen squeezes his way amongst the ball. So Van Beelen right now, the pro dry here, had a difficult qualifying session. He's making up ground, but I think there's been a bit of trouble for Kim Such. Hold up a second, what's he doing out there? What are they all doing out there? That's Such, I think. Who's that with? Is that Lee Berridge who's ended up somehow out in the weeds? It is. So Lee Berridge and Such had a bit of a coming together there through turns 9 and 10. We'll get more on that very shortly, ladies and gentlemen. That's not normal how that's happened, as that's going to be Andrew Marsden running a little bit wide here, taking a bit of an elliptical approach going through Mobile World Curve. But indeed, if you go wide there, you go very wide immediately. There's no coming back as he brings himself back on and loses the place to Kim Such for 10th place in the AM class. But after a couple of laps, right now Stuart Reynolds taking control at the front, although almost being matched there for the fastest lap of the race by Matias Penttilä. So it's Reynolds who leads. It's a 1.7 second gap back to Matias Penttilä. Then we do have Benedict Abdullah here to Guy Edwards, followed by Daniel Perry and Niels Kaur. That's your top 6 all pros. Then it's your AM leader of Rob Sharp right now in 7th place. And right now the Aburis racing driver keeping his head down and breaking away for the rest of his AM rivals, because 3 seconds behind it's then Stephen Codman, who's second in AMs, ahead of Dennis Van Beelen, pro driver there, and Ian Anderson in 10th place overall completes the run to 3rd in the AM class as well. Paul Goffin and Chris Jennings just behind. And well, for Jennings, after what was he started 12th place, he's still there, but right now he's gaining some places versus his fellow pros. As meanwhile, that's the car off the road. That's Daniel Perry going very wide there at the hairpin. I wonder if he's been nudged out there slightly, whether that's a mistake under braking. Well, either way, that's not good news. Perry, he falls backwards down to 6th place, and he potentially loses the draft of the power cars in front of him, which is not good for him at all. Rob Sharp, the AM leader, will just stay behind him and be hoping that the pros can keep it together, because in doing so, he's got a golden opportunity here to fuel save, but also just pull away with the lead pack. But further back, John Roberts battling with Martin Rendell. Still remember, Rendell was the man who was making his way towards the lead of this race until he had that big spin at this corner. So therefore, Rendell right now has got a bit of recovery work to do, but don't count him out, because he could definitely spring some surprises. But Andy Schell, conversely, has avoided all the chaos and drama in the opening couple of laps, and right now he holds on to 6th place here in the AM class. The Quatermass Motorsport driver showing sometimes it's just good to be safe, don't do any drama, and as a result, you'll pick up the places very gradually, and it's always good karma every step of the way. But going through turn 12, you can see they're picking up some gravel as he makes his way through. That'll be where Marsden came back onto the road on the previous lap. He's brought the gravel with him from the trap at 11. And right now, Chell here, just keeping it together. But Heinz Mayer closing little by little in the menacing-looking Rome-worthy Mercedes. But you can see that John Roberts and Martin Riddle all itching. Now, can Chell get them all to fight each other as he makes a little bit wide there out to Sud Curve? This is going to see them make the way in towards Nordkurve right now. And, well, Heinz Mayer decides to back off there. I think that's a smart move. What he's going to do instead is try to pick up the speed through the corner. Chell doesn't quite carry the momentum in. Mayer gets very close here, and this is going to be a duel down towards turn number 2. Chell on the outside on the right of your picture. Mayer on the left of your picture in the Mercedes. He's going to be on the inside of the break-in. Meanwhile, Martin Rendell comes in absolutely brazenly hot. Chell goes intentionally very deep there to try and cover it off. Remember, you can go deep at turn 2. It'll give you the inside into turn number 4, and that's exactly what Chell's gone for, and that's going to keep ahead of Maya for now. The Aston Martin's got the acceleration, but the problem it's got now is it's going to be getting towards 6th gear, and this is where the Mercedes will gain the legs, but not before Martin Rendell gets on the inside there of Maya. And in towards the braking zone for turn number 6 they come. And Martin Rendell right now is going to go all in here. Chell's going to be given some breathing room, thankfully, for what will be that situation. And therefore, Heinz Mann's going to lose a place. Martin Rendell just throwing himself at the situation. And well, to be fair right now, I think Heinz Mann, John Roberts, probably look at him and thinking, you know what? Let him go. Let him pull us up towards the next car. But John Roberts, we jump aboard with here, he looks up the inside of Mann in towards Mercedes. Is he going to be able to get it done? Well, in the end, it'll be too wide coming out of the corner. And right now, Heinz Mann defending his honour through the bend that's named after him. And we're coming through turns 9 and 10. It is going to be all about carrying on the speed. But as they make the one down, and when I say named after Heinz Mann, I mean after his car manufacturer. Well, coming in towards turn 11, we can see what is Roberts and Mann side by side through 11. Right now, Roberts trying to hold it all the way around the outside here, but Mann, of course, having that low line, he can abuse the camera of the road more, and that is going to force Roberts just a little bit high and dry as they're coming out. But here we go then, turns 13 and 14, still side by side, but in the end, Maya slams the door in the face of Roberts and says to him, there's no room for you here, back off, otherwise we're both going round, and Roberts obliges, and indeed, that's a fair defence there from Heinz Mann. If Roberts was fully alongside, it would have been, but he wasn't, he only had a slight overlap, and therefore, the prerogative was on Roberts to back out. Doing so exactly. These drivers know exactly where the limits are when it comes to racing. But meanwhile, Andy Schell still holding on here. This brilliant fight for 6th place at the AM class. And here comes Martin Rendell at the inside. Now, what does Schell do here? Does he fight it? Or does he just simply let the car roll deep and do exactly what he did on the previous lap? Well, he does neither there. Rendell backs out. He can't beat Schell on the brakes this time round. But remember, every time they battle, they're losing the cars in front. And they're also using up a bit more tyre life. And critically, they're using some more fuel. And that could force them onto a much more aggressive fuel-saving strategy later on in the race. But right now, Chell going defensive again. Going through the parabolic curve, and here we can see that Rendell looking around the outside onto the brakes. Chell here getting nice and late on the brakes. You notice that front right brake is starting to glow a little bit red there. That means it's hot. Oh, goodness me. And Heinz Mann's got around there. Well, that's not hot property, as he's got it wrong through turn number 6. Has he been aged on that adventure or not? We're going to replay when we can. But whilst all this fighting is going on, well, we've got the battle for 2nd place build up to a bit of crescendo here. Because Matias Penttilä right now has got Idris Abdullahi all over the back of him like a bad rash. And the Ford Mustang driver here is not allowed to focus on chasing down Reynolds. And at this point, Stuart Reynolds right now, well, he can't be rubbing his hands with glee too early. We're not even 10 minutes into the race. We're not even a 6th of the way through. But understandably, I think Reynolds at this point, if he can just maintain his pace and not make any mistakes, he may just be able to keep the distance here. And Pentillä's really going to have to try and keep everybody behind him. We're coming out of this corner and on to another lap they go, on to lap number 6. And right now, Idris Abdullahi, Edwards, Core and Perry all within 2 seconds of our 2nd place runner. And we can see the Finnish driver, RD Slipsport, trying to get Edwards a bit more involved. And Guy Edwards, there he is, takes a peek to the inside. Does he go for it here? We know Edwards has got the pace to be at the head of this pack. He's got the pace to change Reynolds. But the problem is that right now, he finds himself engrossed in this group. And for Guy Edwards, what do you do at this point? If you've got the pace, well, in theory, you could get away with essentially sitting in this group and saving fuel, because you'll naturally leap them, given what is the better fuel economy of the McLaren, and also it's faster refueling time in the pit lane. But there's a big caveat, which is if you're targeting the win, you need to get past this pack, because if they are lapping slower than the race leader, the natural deficit is you are losing time to Stuart Reynolds. That is the balancing act he's got to achieve. But meanwhile, we see a swap of positions there. Carwadine letting Matias Tem go. That'll be for 13th place. But further back, we've got Martin Rendell still fighting with Andy Schell. Well, he left this battle with Rendell falling back, but he's had a better run out of what is turn 3. And now as he makes way in towards the hairpin, Schell goes all in again. So Schell right now really refusing to give way. Brilliant fight in between and gets a lot of power oversteer there. And Rendell went for a lovely switch back to the inside, coming in towards turn number 7. Here they go too wide. Up towards Mercedes then. It's going to be Schell on the inside towards the all-important braking zone of turn number 8. What does Rendell do? He switches it back. He throws the dummy here, and it's a good move from Rendell. Can he get it done? Schell sees it coming, tries to hang it around the outside, but just rides the exit curve a bit too high. And in the end, Martin Rendell makes it work there. Now, that is a dummy that was very well solved there. Made it look as though it's going to be on the outside in towards Mercedes, and it cuts it to the inside using the much more smoothed-out brakes of the Porsche. But meanwhile, John Roberts dives up the inside immediately of Andy Schell, and after what has been caught out there at turn number 8, Schell loses out just a little bit of momentum, and he's going to lose the place. But there we see Roberts moving onwards now, and a bit further behind, Kim Such and Lee Berridge trying to queue up behind. And And well, Gel's not going to give up yet, of course. He's down to 8th in the AM class, but to be fair, if I know Andy well, he's been enjoying this so far. He's really loved these opening 10 to 11 minutes of racing, and I think that's going to motivate him to keep on pushing and make sure he can try and stay with the guys in front. It may not be over by a long shot, but meanwhile, Matias Penttilä and Guy Edwards still fighting for that second place spot as they continue to lose time to Stuart Reynolds little by little. But, ladies and gentlemen, all the brilliant battling action we have seen at the start of this race, we need to take a look back at some of the big moments since the start. So let's go back in time and give you a quick recap of all the big moments from the opening 12 minutes of racing here at the Hockenheimring. And so it all began, well, drivers going green behind Stuart Reynolds, but as he took us green, well, what exactly did we see? We saw a brilliant launch from him, and Guy Edwards on the right, well, he didn't quite have the launch there in the McLaren for 6-7 Motorsport, and it was Ben Idris Abdullahi who was able to get the jump into second place. But this led to a battle going through Nord Curve, and what we did see behind is everyone queued up here with the two-wide fight only really ending when it came down towards the Spitscare hairpin. But we're only going to take a look in towards turns 2, 3 and 4 to give you an idea of the characteristics here. They all came to the braking zone, and will that fight for second place really taking priority as Rob Sharp had the pressure there of Ian Anderson on him, and Anderson in the end tried to go around the outside at turn number 4, but on cold tyres there was no grip there initially. So when were the big votes after that? Well, one of them was in the rear of the picture there. This was Mark Johnson getting a bit wrong coming out of turn number 4. Cold tyres, a lot of curb at turn 4 and a bit of steering lock, and in the end a very dangerous combination that sent the track mouse Aston Martin all the way round. So Johnson having his bad luck come back. But for John Roberts, there was also a degree of difficulty. This was Roberts coming in towards Mercedes. And as he did so, well, in the end, on the brakes, his teammate Lee Berridge went. And Berridge, in the end, came in like a barnstormer, making the contact and pushing Roberts' ride. But what exactly happened there, I hear you ask? Well, this is what it looked like from Berridge's perspective. And, well, he just carried too much speed into that braking zone. And in the end, had to snap the car to the inside to avoid clattering his teammate on the rear. But instead, clattered his teammate on the side and forced everyone just a little bit wide. But it was the lesser of two evils there. I'm sure they'll talk about that one after the race. But it led to Heinz Mayer falling off the road as well. But we couldn't dwell on that for too long, because then we had this for Daniel Osler as he made his way through Sud Curve, took too much apex curb, and the rear of the car let go after starting for the pit lane, and it all went round. But sadly, it did collect both Jules Gardner and also Andy Marsden. Marsden was able to get away with it, but not for Gardner, who in the end got caught and went to the barrier. So that was lap number 1, and then Martin Rendell on lap number 2. Well, he was battling hard in the pursuit of the lead of the AM class, as we did see that Anderson and Codman fighting side by side. But under braking here, Anderson came in very late behind, and Rendell, being perhaps phased by that, went round and lost the rear of the car. So Rendell then had to go on a bit of a recovery drive. But also on lap number 2, we saw this for Lee Berridge and Kim Such. They found themselves off in Narnia. A big look up the inside there from Lee Berridge, and went all in for it. And then there was Martin Rendell rejoining, but contact side by side there between himself and the 29. And in the end, they got pinned on each other. So in the end, Lee Berridge being sent all the way round, and that was Kim Such with him. This is what it looked like on board from Kim Such's perspective, as he was battling there. The Fury Supersport car of Matthias Tem being elbowed out, and in the end, Such and what was his rival Berridge get caught on each other, and at this point, he had nowhere to go. They were hooked on each other until one of them could let the other go. Well, I would say keep it in the bedroom, guys, but at the end of the day, they've kept it on circuit. But meanwhile, as we do a look back to what happened on lap number 5, this was Heinz Mayer, and Mayer having things go into a bit of a battle here as he made his way down towards turn number 6. Well, they made the way onto the brakes there. Chell going defensive, and it was Rendell just behind, and Heinz Mayer got the power down. The rear right tyre took the curb a bit too high, and then it all came round. But with that, we also had a bit of difficulty for Andy Marsden after his near miss and a big escape earlier on. This was going through turns 13 and 14 on lap number 5, and as he did so in towards 15, well, the rear of the car just lifting up a little bit too much coming in towards Sud Curve, and it all went around. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, we go back to your live racing. So plenty of battling at the start, and we're at 15 minutes in. We've still got 3/4 of the race to go. And once they all make the way down, well, right now, this fight for second place definitely still building up as Guy Edwards trying to get up the inside of Idris Abdullahi, trying to move back into 3rd. And well, as they made the way through up the right-hander, well, we can see there Niels Core getting very close at the back. With the satellite racing cars right now working together, and Daniel Perry right there in the 313, but I would imagine that Perry at this point, as we do ride aboard the front bumper of your 313 for Paddock Motorsport, his game plan now surely has got to be to do as much fuel saving as possible here behind this long pack, given how hard they're all fighting. And I wouldn't be surprised if Niels Core's doing the same. We know Niels is a very strategic driver, although I do wonder whether perhaps he's coming here today not feeling as though he's got the pace, so therefore he has to go into full fuel saving mode by default to try and get a jump. And we are coming towards the end of the opening stint as well. Based on previous races, we are normally expecting 2 pit stops, and they will be around on the 20-minute mark equally. So it means we'll see pit stops around 18 to 23 minutes into the race, and we'll then see our second stops, depending on fuel saving, around about 37 to 45 minutes into the race, and it creates a bit of symmetry there, but there's always a little bit of fluctuation in that pit window. And indeed, if drivers are able to fuel save more than normal, you can see that second stint go a lot deeper into the race, and sometimes you may see the last pit stops occur with only 10 minutes to go. But right now, we can't think to then, we think to now, and here's Matias Penttilä with Guy Edwards on his inside, and Edwards here, I think now really wants to get back into second as he hops over Nord Curve, and we need to squeeze the apex, with great space being shown between both drivers. That's not easy to do, going too wide for the opening bend, and once they come down in towards the braking zone, Edwards does back out initially, and well, Penttilä wants to turn in, but he's still got the nose of the McLaren just sitting there. And a bit of a tap, but in the end, Edwards backs off to make sure he doesn't gain from that contact. But right now, Guy Edwards definitely doing his best John Clend impression to say, I'm going for first. And as they make the way onwards and in towards the next braking zone, I think right now the problem is he's still got to pass Penttilä before he can chase down Reynolds. And Reynolds at this point is almost 5 seconds away. Well, that goes to show you the difference there, being caught up in this battle. They all fan out there. They're all thinking about potential moves. And you see Niels Core going defensive there, and that covers off Perry. But also, I wonder if that's concerned his teammate Idris Abdullahi. Now, they will be on the radio together, and I think Core and Idris Abdullahi here running in formation at the moment, although Niels is going to be on the inside here coming in towards turn number 7, and as he does so, Idris Abdullahi will defend the inside line, but I think this is more to make sure Perry can't get past the pair of them at this point, although Daniel Perry does try to go around the outside initially at Mercedes. It doesn't quite work. Meanwhile, Lee Berridge and John Roberts, well, the two teammates come together again, but this time cleanly, and Berridge does move ahead. And how can you tell which one of them was whom? Well, if you look to the rear of the Boosted Motorsport car, you will see that Berridge has what is the blue contour lines on the back of the car. Meanwhile, Roberts has the green contour lines on the back of them, and we do appreciate the fact they have got slightly different colorations there, which does help us identify the drivers, and I do love that when a team does that, where they've got the same base livery, but they've just made a specific tweak to it, which you can very easily see. It's always nice when the teams do help out the commentary booth, but still, they don't have to do that, to be fair, and well, we've always got a lot of digital data available, as that's very sideways there for Andy Chell. Any more sideways than that, he would be drifting his way up towards Mobile 1 curve, as he still fights with Heinz Mayer for that 9th place spot in the AM class. So Chell's falling back a little bit as Mark Johnson has found his way past, but he's not going down without a fight, is Chell. And well, can you blame him for it? The answer is no. But didn't this fan beat them? He's in 7th for the pros right now, but that means nothing. Pros don't get any points based on position, they get it based on overall position. And we do see Matias Tem there taking a very liberal track limit, and well, that's going to see him pick up a slowdown there. Well, Van Beelen gives up the spot. He won't know, I think, that Matias Tem has picked up a slowdown penalty, but the problem is going to be he's going to know very soon, because Tem will need to bleed that slowdown by the time he gets to Spitzkehre. If he does not, it will be upgraded into a stop and hold penalty. So Van Beelen immediately there seeing that Tem was lifted off the throttle, and therefore gradually giving up as much time as he possibly can. He doesn't want to have to do it, but that's the thing. If you pick up a slowdown going to a long straight, it's going to be very obvious you're going to have to burn it, as he does get rid of it there into the braking zone. Now behind him, that's Paul Goffin, 3rd of your AM drivers, with Chris Jennings in tow. And right now Paul Goffin, he's got plenty of company, but it's not the company he wants. He wants to be around AM drivers, particularly Stephen Codman and Rob Sharp. But right now he's got pros in front of him, but he can use this to his advantage. If he finds that Tim and Van Beelen are a little bit quicker than him, but he can match them, he might be able to stay with them, use them to fuel save and also to gain some pace. Particularly now as we're getting closer and closer to that first pit stop. And unfortunately, we do have a car in the pit lane. It is a retired car for Daniel Osler, and I do believe he's been involved in a bit of an incident. And we take a quick look back to understand what's happened to the Paddock Motorsport driver. And this was Daniel Osler just coming out of Mobile 1 curve, and we're already quite a way down the order. He was 2 laps down the leaders, in fact, making his way in towards the corner. The car snatching away, and I think in the end, something not right on the car, and he's had to tow it to the pit lane. He's already been involved in one incident earlier on, of course, that big spin at what was Stuart curve, which really spoiled his opportunities. He tried to recover from what was the pit lane start. That not being the expected start, of course, there was a technical issue with the car on the grid, and therefore they were forced to start from the pit lane. But as he drops out, he's the first retirement from this race officially. And meanwhile, Andy Chell still got Heinz Mayer for close company. So right now, this battle is not entering retirement. If anything, it's entering a ripe age, as we do ride on board inside the cockpit of Heinz Mayer's 222. Now, as he makes way out there for Owen Worthy, we can see the Aston Martin and Chell looking a little bit quicker through the corners compared to Mayer. And I think Mayer here just a bit worried about the understeer. Remember the fact this is a very heavy front end car, the Mercedes. Front engine rear-wheel drive always going to be led by the nose rather than the rear, but you do have a very light rear on this car, which means on the lower speed corners, if you get on the throttle too soon, the rear will come round, it'll be very light, and all the weight is on the nose. So it's going to be now for Mayer just to take his time for these corners, get a good exit, and that 6.3 litre V8 will do the rest of the work for him, trying to blast past a Mercedes-powered Aston Martin in front. Indeed, that car there, not powered by an Aston Martin engine. The days of the V12 engines in Aston Martins long gone. Now it's Mercedes engines in them as he does look to the outside here. And here he goes as Hockenheimring looking all the way round. Can he get this done? Onto the brakes they both go, and in the end Chell will just simply hold his line and do exactly what he does best, going defensive and make himself as wide as possible. But of course, by running a bit wide out the corner, that is going to enable Mayer to get closer. You know, Dennis Van Beelen fighting Matias Penttilä looking up the inside here in towards the right hand of Mobile 1, but this is now going to put him on the outside in towards turn 12. And Dennis Van Beelen in the end tuck it in there, and Tem doing a brilliant job of that move. And that goes to show you that the Fury Supersport tried just knowing the thresholds there of when he can get ahead versus when he cannot. But meanwhile, trying to get ahead of everyone on strategy, Guy Edwards comes into the pit lane from, at the time, it was the top 5. So he makes his way down, and well, he'll be going for the undercut here. And will we see a reaction? Now for Stuart Reynolds, I doubt we will. Our race leader and defending champion with a 6-second gap almost, he will feel quite safe here. And I think his thought process will be stay out the longest everybody, because you have track position and you have a nice buffer. If he was only 2 to 3 seconds ahead of the rest of the field, then he'd perhaps be thinking about it, but he has a lot more space to react. If he loses 3 seconds as a result of the first pit stop, yes, it halves his lead, but he doesn't lose the lead. Whereas if he's 3 seconds ahead, and that is a margin you can lose in the pit lane, 3 to 4 seconds, in the worst case situation, well, it's going to be a lot scarier there. So he has bought himself some breather in by staying out of all the battling. Matias Penttilä, Niels Korp, Matias Penttilä, and Daniel Perry all together, and Rob Sharp. Credit where it's due to the AM leaders. We do see Stephen Codman make a brief appearance at the bottom of the camera. There is in the rear of it as well. Well, hold the phone on that one, because we've got Heinz Mayer and Andy Chell fighting to turn 2. And Mayer up the inside this time does take that 9th place in the AM class of Andy Chell. And here's a quick replay to explain how that happened. So this was out an odd curve, and it was a better run for Mayer this time. Chell not on the speed that he was previously. And when the Mayer on the inside at this point, it was pretty much open book situation. And Chell tried to hang around the outside, but as he swept around there, the car not quite carrying the speed he needed. And I don't think he had the grip on the rear left tyre. I think he might have warmed up that tyre a bit too much and losing out. So Mayer up now into 9th in the glass, and that is 18th overall. Chell down to 19th and 10th for now. But we come back to your live racing, and what we were saying about Rob Sharp, just before we cut ourselves off, is the fact he's done very well to hold on to this lead group as they all come into the pit lane. So therefore the fuel tank's all staying empty. And what also we will see there, I believe, the car of Stephen Codman coming in. Will anybody go an extra lap? Well, Stuart Reynolds definitely has. He's going a grand total of 14 laps in the opening stint, but nobody else seems to be doing so at the moment, although Matias Penttilä, his teammate, is as well. So Fury Supersport, their strategy has been to go long here today. And well, Reynolds, of course, he can afford to mix up the strategy if he needs to. Matias Penttilä, in the fact he started from the very back of the field, he's deciding here to go for the overcut strategy to buy himself some more clear track and make sure he doesn't fall into the pack. But meanwhile, in that pit lane, cars up in the jacks as well. Tyres being changed. Remember, they do change tyres in parallel with fuel, but they won't be able to change all 4 tyres, given the fact it will be approximately 7 seconds per tyre. So here they all come at the pit lane. That's going to be very close. Oh my goodness, and in there, that's Niels Korp. Korp jumps ahead of all of them. What about that? Now, to be fair to Niels, it's gone wrong in the pit lane for him and teammates in the past, but here today, this has worked out an absolute treat for the Satellite Racing driver, and well, making his way ahead. And well, in fact, the driver it went wrong for in the pit lane, it was VIR, and it was for Daniel Perry where it all went wrong, if my memory serves me correctly now that I think about it. But Niels Korp getting that absolutely bang on, and well, jumping all the way up there. Lovely bit of strategy, but meanwhile, Guy Edwards has jumped all of them by pitting 1 lap earlier. So for Edwards, he's been able to buy himself that clear track, and he goes on the attack. Meanwhile, speaking of attack here, this Daniel Perry, oh, that's going to be a big lunge up the inside, and that's going to be Matias Penttilä. I think he missed his braking zone then, had to cut to the inside, and when did send Penttilä wide, but Daniel Perry takes both places there, and Rob Sharp right now is probably looking at this behind, thinking as the AM leader, why is it you guys can't carb down? I need you all to carb down with that 4-second gap to Stephen Codman. And there's Codman in the rear of the pitch. That gap has grown in the pit lane, it should be pointed out, as meanwhile Stuart Reynolds comes in from lead. Well, could this be? That could have been a bit of drama there, but they all did very well to avoid turning that into what have been a bit of a traffic jam at Spitskare Hairpin. As meanwhile, Martin Redden on the Berridge fight, and Berridge has got the pressure of Redden, and he's pressured himself into a mistake at the hairpin. Tried to get the power down too soon. The rear left tyre simply saying, no, here we go, we're going around. And Lee Berridge in the end, unfortunately, making a critical error, and that's going to drop him right down to 8th place in the AM class. Now, Andy Chell, meanwhile, has jumped back ahead of Heinz Mayer. And Heinz has had a terrible pit stop. In fact, the best part of 2 seconds the gap has swung, in the pits at least, and Cheryl in the end's got ahead as a result of that one. I wonder if May has made a mistake since leaving the pit lane, because that gap has grown to 6 seconds. That's not natural from where it's a 2-second swing in the pit lane, I can tell you that. But meanwhile, Matias Penttilä back into the pit lane. Well, as he makes his way on in then, well, this is going to be a stop. And in fact, I think this is his first pit stop, so he has gone, unless I'm mistaken, he has gone the grand total of the 14 laps. Makes one out now. Indeed, we do apologise for the confusion there, ladies and gentlemen. His pit lane start is registered on our data screen as a pit stop. Technically it is, but it's not as well. We can't discount that. So therefore, Matias Penttilä in his natural sequence with Stuart Reynolds also pit in. And Reynolds, of course, with nobody to fuel save off of. He can only do lift and coast, or LICO as it's also known, as it seems to be abbreviated now in the modern terminology. I don't know where that came from. We'll call it lift and coast, thank you very much. Was the number 1 driver, makes one around. What Guy Edwards has halved that gap to him. So Edwards in the end, undercut strategy, tick in the box. He jumps into the lead of the battle for second. Also as part of that undercut strategy, another big tick in the box. He is chasing down Reynolds. Now, Edwards here has got to get going. He's going to have to use up more fuel here to close down that gap. If he's got that confidence to think he is the quicker driver over race distance, which he's got to believe, that he's got to put some really good laps at this point onwards to the second stint and open up as much a gap as possible to the fight now for third behind, where all the fighting they're having has definitely caused them to split a bit. And then he's got to believe that he can find a way into this, because I reckon if he can close that gap down, he will take Reynolds the distance in this one. But we've still got a way to go. We're almost at the halfway point. Meanwhile, just Abdullahi after what was that heroic battle through the Spitzkegger hairpin, or the heroic evasive action as well. Right now, definitely trying to find his way back onto the podium there, albeit he'd have to take off his teammate of Niels Core to do so. But with all that happened, ladies and gentlemen, and we're going a bit wrong for Daniel Perry only months ago. Well, we lost Perry for this group. We're going to need to take a look back at what exactly's happened. And here we go for a couple of replays. But that all began, of course, with what's the madness coming out of the pit lane. And this was Niels Core getting the jump on everybody. So, as Niels Core's car came down for the jacks, he got out first of the whole group, and here in the end saw the space and went all in for it around the outside of Matias Penttilä. And I think Matias there was probably looking at him thinking, no, he's not doing it surely, and yes, he was. But of course, then things got very interesting as they made their way down towards the hairpin, as we saw plenty of fighting, and this was Ben Idris Abdullahi in the end getting a little bit too late on the brakes in towards the Spitzkegger hairpin. Daniel Perry looked up the inside, and Idris Abdullahi missed his braking zone, had to swing to the inside to avoid the back of the RD Simsport car, and they all did incredibly well to thread the needle around each other. And I'll tell you one thing, ladies and gentlemen, that goes to show you all these drivers, it's like a sixth sense. When they've raced each other for years, they know when it goes wrong, and they all immediately react to it. This is what it looked like on board from Daniel Perry's perspective as he made his way down. Now remember, Perry was putting the pressure on the satellite racing Mercedes of Idris Abdullahi, so he looks to the inside. Abdullahi in the end getting wrong with the brake and cuts the inside, and Perry there just simply touched side by side, a bit of contact between himself and what was the RD Simsport car. That was always going to happen, to be fair, given the angle. And I think afterwards they'll look back at that one and both shake hands and go, you know what, there's nothing that could have been done there. It was a very close moment. But speaking of close moments, we also had this for Lee Berridge versus Martin Rendell. He was trying to make a big dive up the inside here versus the Porsche driver. Almost got it done under braking in towards Spitzkegger, but the problem was they had to try and get the traction down. As he did so, came off of the apex curve a bit too high, and it caused the rear left to bounce out, and unfortunately the BMW driver going around. But simultaneously, we had this for Daniel Perry. Now, we did not catch this on camera. This was going through turns 9 and 10, took a lot of curb there at 10, went out wide, hit the sausage curb on the exit, and it sent the car all the way round. But thankfully, he was able to get it into reverse, or at least get the car to roll backwards on itself. And you can see there Berridge off in the distance going around, and simultaneously both of them there spinning the cars round. Well, a bit poetic that one, although I'm sure they won't appreciate that right then and there. Meanwhile, we did have a bit of a moment for John Roberts. Only months later, this was the boosted motorsport car being chased by Ian Anderson. Anderson lost out massively in the pit stops, it must be said. We did pit on lap number 9, and in the end, John Roberts going very sideways, and Anderson able to squeeze on through. Well, with that, ladies and gentlemen, it's back to your live racing. So we head towards the halfway point. In fact, we'll cross it in 20 seconds or so time. And Daniel Perry right now will trying to recover here. He's on the back of Dennis Van Beelen. Now, understandably, the paddock motorsport driver, after a spin, he's got to get his head down and get it back to the ground again. And the 6.9 car will look nice at the back, but it'll be very nice if we can get ahead of it. He's Let's look up the inside. Here he goes. Can he get it done versus the Chicane online racing machine? And the answer is yes, he can. All the way out the inside. And Dennis Van Beelen in the end has no response other than to give him the space. And in the end, Perry immediately back up to 9th place. Next target's Matias Penttilä, 4 seconds up the road. And lap time wise, the two of them are very similar when they're both in clear air. So therefore, this is going to be a bit of a hill to climb. But you would imagine that Perry right now will accept that fact and just focus on one thing at a time, which is breaking away from Van Beelen. And then he'll go on to his next task. But the next task of the order is for your leader, Stuart Reynolds, to keep maintaining his advantage. And his last lap, at 45.64, actually has given him the best part of 7 attempts more over Guy Edwards at 46.35. So right now it does seem to be swinging one way, and it's swinging the way of your leader, Stephen Codman. Letting Matias Penttilä go there at turn number 12. So your second place Amdra right now. He would like to use temps to close up to Rob Sharp, who's opened that gap up even more, now to 6 seconds. So Sharp right now, your Am leader, he's losing the top 5 overall, but he's still gaining time there as a purple middle sector for Ben Idris Abdullahi. So there's a lot of time still out there, and well, the Satellite Racing Drive is finding it. So these lap times are still coming down. Looking up from them a bit further back, Dennis Van Beelen still right in the rear of Daniel Perry as we jump aboard and get a ride of the number 694 Mustang. And the Chicane online rated driver, I think, wondering where he can make a move. Well, not into turn 2. Takes a little look up the inside there, but that's more for positioning rather than anything critical. As he comes out the corner now and makes his way through turn number 4. Very poor exit out the corner. That's not because he did a bad job, Van Beelen. That is the Mustang's weakness in the fact it's got so much rear torque, and will that Porsche much smoother on the application, which is what you would expect from a mid-engine rear drive car. Remember, the engine in the Porsche plus also the McLaren located behind the driver, but interestingly for a Porsche, not over the rear axle, unlike the 911 design, which is rear engine rear drive. The Cayman being at mid-engine rear drive there, given the format of the car and also the most optimal position. And a little bit of trivia, of course, but Porsche having to move away from rear-engine rear-wheel drive. It all began with the Porsche 911 RSR GTE, where they did in the end move to mid-engine rear-wheel drive because of the regulations. In order to comply with them and also to get the best out of the car, they had to move the engine there. They wanted to stay rear-engine rear-wheel drive, but Porsche at the time chose to move it in towards the centre, and that's followed through into the Cayman machine, because the 911 as a GT3 racer, you won't see it as a GT4 racer, unlike the cars you see on screen. Well, that's staying rear-engine rear-wheel drive in its current guise. But as Perry makes his way up towards what will be turn 12, he won't be thinking about that. The only thing he'll be thinking about is making sure the pendulum does not swing on this car. And well, Matias Penttilä, meanwhile, he finds himself in the midst of a bit of a satellite racing sandwich. He is the filler, and well, to be fair, a filler of RD Sim Sports always good. It's a healthy filler there. It's going to give us a healthy dose of battling action. It's always good for the overtaking system. As they make their way down towards turn number 2, right now Niels Kors, the man who finds himself on the bubble for 3rd place in the overall and pro category. Right now, the Ford Mustang tries close company. He doesn't have anybody to fuel save off of. Wonder how Satellite Racing will work this one out. Do they invest now in Idris Abdullahi? I think, well, if he's the 5th place runner, he's the 3rd driver in this group. He's the one who right now really needs to do all the fuel saving. So when we do get to that final pit stop, he'll be able to jump ahead and then try to help his teammate, of course, get back ahead of Penttilä, and then they focus on finishing 3rd and 4th together. Now, of course, Penttilä being between a rock and a hard place, what do you do as an RD Sim Sport driver here? How do you play this? Well, one theory is you could theoretically let yourself fall to 5th by accident. Well, you don't make a mistake. What you do is you simply down one of the straights coming out the corners, you just simply take it very gently out of the corner. But of course, doing that, it does bring its own hazards, which is the driver behind doesn't realise it. They may end up going a bit slowly, and then suddenly you're going to lose the pace of the car in front. So therefore, being the guy in the middle right now is probably the best bet he can do. He won't want to fight to the front of this, because otherwise he'll give a fuel-saving opportunity to both satellite racing cars. He's just got to fuel save as much as possible, but not lose the leader. Well, Niels Kors, of course, getting into that 3rd place as a result of an absolutely brilliant amount of fuel saving in the opening stint. Plus also, much like Ben Idris Abdullahi, in fact, both of them, 21.5 seconds their pit stops, dead on the dot. They've had an identical pit stop. The rest of those who pitted, 22 seconds around them. And that goes to show you just how good a strategy and how much fuel saving they have done. And those are not fuel-efficient cars, the Ford Mustang and the Mercedes, but Satellite Racing have absolutely nailed it in terms of fuel saving on that 1st stint, and they'll be hoping to do that again. But things do calm down for now in terms of the battles. We do look back to Stephen Codman as we see Rob Sharp go underneath the camera, Matias Penttilä as well, but Codman currently of 2nd place and runner. And well, that first win of the season in the AM class will come to him one day, I suspect. But right now for Codman in the number 5, it's just a bit too far away today, unless he can find a way to gain on Sharp. And last lap, the two of them were separated by 300ths in the favour of Codman. When it's 300s and nothing more than that, that is ground. Well, every 100th, every 1000th does matter, but you really need attempts to be able to make it work. And the upside now is the fact that Rob Sharp does not have the toe of the top 5 anymore, which was one of the big benefits he had at the start of the race and all the way through that first stint. So you could argue that in theory right now, Codman may start to gain or at least equalise the ground, but of course he doesn't have any opportunity to fuel save. So that's going to be a bit of a problem he's going to need to overcome. Paul Goffin, meanwhile, he sits in third AM class, with Daniel Perry and Dennis Van Beenen being the separators between himself and Codman. And then we do see Ollie Carbadine. He's gone under the radar quite a bit, having started in 9th place. He's had a brilliant race so far as Carbadine. Not quite on the podium at the moment, but should he be able to catch up to Goffin, he could be there. And Martin Rendell, meanwhile, he's 10 seconds back at the moment. That's the car behind. That was the lap down car there of, I believe, Jules Gardner, so not have to worry too much about him at the moment. But here is Martin Rendell, the 5th place runner in AM. He's still putting together a good race of his own. So it's going to be interesting to see how they all fabricate together, these drivers. Because right now, Rendell, of course, has got a lot of pace in the AM class. He is the quickest AM driver out there if you exclude Rob Sharp and Stephen Codman. And, well, he'll feel as though that third spot at the podium is his. He's got a lot of work to bring it to him, but it is a 14-second gap to Goffin. And at the rate he's going at the moment, lapping a second lap faster, he will be there by the end of the race. Heinz Mayer, a bit further back, still fighting with Andy Chell after what was his mistake earlier on. He gave the place back to Chell, and now for Mayer, he's got to try and do it all over again. Let's do ride aboard the dashboard here of the Rome Worthy 222, and the South African driver, he's done this once, so surely right now that was a rehearsal, and this time he's going to do it properly in anger. We'll have to wait and see where he's going to be able to do it or not as they make the way in towards turn number 11. Through the right hand they come, and right now both drivers here still pushing, still both impressing to be fair. Be a bit of excitement here as they make their way into that braking zone. But we will see what's to be as they roll the way through these corners. But right now, at least, will Heinz Mayer staying there, staying in the distance and in the touch as they roll the way on towards another lap. Sued curve, not really offering an overtaking opportunity there for Mayer, instead of having to sit back. But I suspect right now, as he builds his way out the corner, well, he's still got a bit more work he can do. But down the start finish straight they go. Kim Such a bit further back. And you can see there his teammate Rome Worthy. In fact, gaining little by little. And that last lap, Kim actually the quicker driver by comparison than the Oris car, I should say. It's the sister team there. You have the Oris Digital team and you do have the Rome Worthy car. And, well, of course, they were teammates last season. But Rome Worthy now taking over one of the two Oris racing teams with the Oris Digital red team staying as Oris Digital. And then we did see what was Oris race, not Oris Digital yellow, becoming the Rome Worthy team. And right now, Andy Chell here under pressure for the two drivers, but particularly Heinz Mayer. He gets very close, make his way on down and towards turn number 6. As he does so here, we'll look from one side to the other. Here comes Mayer, trying to go around the outside. Chell just puts it right to the inside on the brakes. What will it be? Will Chell be able to hold on? He's been very accustomed to staying on that inside line. And the answer is yes, he'll hold it very succinctly. And then Heinz Mayer not quite able to make a move. So going to stay back a little bit longer and head in towards turn number 10. Before that, we'll get to turn 8, of course, the Mercedes corner, and, well, we may see another opportunity for Mayer in due course. But meanwhile, between them all, let's not forget the fact we've got some other AM drivers who are inside this top 10, including Lee Berridge, who's chased after John Roberts, his teammate for Boosted Motorsport. And after their altercation right at the start of the race, I think right now Lee and John have calmed down the differences a little bit. And, well, I think it was an innocent error, to be fair. But as we do see Berridge almost losing it there coming out of turn number 12, just a little bit too aggressive on the exit. Keep in mind, of course, the white and blue exit curb is actually a bit higher than the AstroTurf that's beyond it. But meanwhile, a snatch loose there from what is Roberts, and suddenly we've got a two-wide battle here between two teammates. Now, who's going to be the bravest of the pair going in towards the Lord curve? And I think it's going to be Berridge, and then Roberts does back off there. He does not take it too wide into the opening corner. I think that's who wanted to play it safe rather than be sorry afterwards. But going on, will Andy Chell. He's still got that problem with Heinz Mayer glued to the back of him. And right now, I think the only thing that's going to pry Heinz Mayer away is when he gets past Chell. But Chell is not going to make it easy for him. Kim Such 2 seconds by and still watching it. I think now, going into a bit of a fuel-saving mode, I think he's hinged his race around beating these two. And if I was the number 29 driver, I'd definitely be thinking about fuel-saving here as much as possible. I think he's already got that fault. And the fact is he just stays a bit further back there because his pace definitely equal the two in front. And he doesn't need to do any more at the moment other than stay within touching distance. But as they make the way down and towards Fitzgerald hairpin, well, Mayer coming out of the draft there, follows back into it now, and I think here he's trying to get the overspeed, but he's not quite sure how close he wants to get. Chell goes defensive again, in towards the hairpin. This has been a deja vu of the previous lap, if you will. What's going to be different this time? What can Mayer do that's going to upset the Quatermass Motorsport Aston Martin? And the answer is nothing. In the end, he can't quite make it work. Chell's too good out that corner for now. But of course, we do have another pit stop coming up in due course. Meanwhile, we make our way back up to third place overall and in pro. And it's Niels Core, Matias Penttilä and Matias Penttilä as they were. And Rob Sharp is falling away from this group little by little, but he's still extended his gap to Stephen Codman. Codman right now lapping 3/10 a lap slower by comparison, so Codman not able to bridge that gap. So that gap has now gone up to the best part of what is 8 seconds. So Sharp right now really has shown he is in a bit of a class of his own in the AM class here today. Although Codman was close in qualifying, as was Ian Anderson. Well, the way it's played out has played out into his favour. Speaking of Anderson, he's into the pit lane for his second pit stop. He's coming in quite early. Now, he did pit on lap 9 to take his first pit stop, but he's pitting on lap 23. So he has actually got a bit longer on this second pit stop. But Anderson's day today has got a bit backwards rather than forwards. Meanwhile, Daniel Perry dives up the inside of Stephen Codman. We do see the car of Andrew Marsden there crawling on. I think it's had a bit of an off. We might get a replay of that in due course. Anderson's into pit lane, so he's going for the undercut strategy ×2 now. He's going to drop him very far down the order. I think it will drop into the territory of Chris Jennings if he's not careful. And it's not to be rude about Jennings, it's just the fact that Jennings being that further back. Although Jennings, to be fair, did have a very long pit stop. And I believe both he and Mark Johnson were caught out with what was stop and hold penalties for unsafe pit entry. That's one thing we didn't really talk about today. The problem with the Hockenheimring, that pit entry is absolutely dangerous. More on that shortly though, because right now Heinz Mayer is looking dangerous this time versus Andy Chell. This will be for 8th place on the road now, but we believe 9th on the strategy. And Mayer's fully alongside here into the Spitzker hairpin. Now, what does Mayer do here? Chell parks the car up, but look what it's done. It's brought Kim Such right onto the back of this. And so Mayer not having the ability to switch back and not having the ability to go around the outside. So playing it patiently, but Such now might just cause the tempo to be up a little bit between these drivers as you ride aboard the dashboard here of your Oris racing car. Into the braking zone before turn number 8, long distance braking there. I think the lift and coast as well. We come through the left and in towards the right hander of turn number 10. Right now, Such definitely playing this at a distance here. If he's playing his cards right, he's going to jump the pair of them, I suspect, to the pit lane. Well, no, let's wait and see just how much fuel saving he has done in this in number 29. Definitely staying in time with them as he rolls his way onwards, and well as Ian Anderson makes his way onwards. What we were talking about before we did have to switch tactic for a brief moment was the fact that we had 1 minute pit stops above what has been Chris Jennings and Mark Johnson, and that is because the pit entry here, we do believe they both picked up 40-second stop and holds for cutting the white line. Now it's coming through the curve that takes you into the pit lane. If you touch the white lines there, not go beyond them, touch them, you are immediately deemed to be unsafe on pit entry. This is one of the strictest pit lanes that you'll see on the iRacing simulator, and I do believe it's the same rules in real life at the Hockenheimring. They are incredibly strict about pit lane, and well, that's why you have seen both of them be beleaguered with stop and hold penalties, if my understanding is correct. As Chris Jennings is into the pit lane, so I look at my content booth window, he comes in now for his second and final stop of the day. But no sign of stop here for Stuart Reynolds, your race leader, as he goes on to his 25th tour of the circuit. And right now, Reynolds in control. This is what he needs. He needs another win in the books. His podium streak has been impressive, but the wins are what are going to separate him at the very top of the field as Guy Edwards comes in. So it's a second and final stop for Edwards, as we are Niels Core, Matias Penttilä and Matias Penttilä. He all go on, but Edwards with the undercut strategy. He has had to come in a little bit earlier. Rob Sharp carries on, as does Matias Tem, but get Edwards right now might be thinking to himself, well, I've done enough to open up a gap. Can I now get the jump on them all? But where exactly will he fit back into the picture? That's the question that awaits him. And it's quite a crowded circuit at the moment. We still do have quite a lot of drivers together on this lead lap, and the field has not spread as significantly as it would perhaps at other rounds, and which shows you A, the pace that everyone's brought to the table, but also B, the class of the racing we've seen. But then Guy Edwards comes out the pit lane and he emerges in 11th place, but where is he? He's 2.5 seconds behind Paul Goffin, the third place AM runner, who you can see there at the bottom of your picture, at the bottom right, and meanwhile you do see just behind that is going to be Ollie Carbadine, full for your AM drivers, running in 12. So Edwards coming out to 11th, that's not too bad. And given the relative pace between Edwards and Goffin, he will catch him within 2 laps, we suspect, once he's got his tyres warmed back up. So therefore, he'll be hoping that Goffin's going to come in by the end of lap number 26. If he does so, then for Edwards, this will be the perfect pit stop. This undercut strategy will have worked out magically. But Heinz Mayer comes into the pit lane here, makes his way down. And what's it going to be here for the Mercedes driver from Rome Worthy? As he has given up the battle to Andy Chell, at least for now. And of course, Chell hold him to a T. But Chell goes longer here with Kim Such still following. But Such has fallen back a little bit again. And I suspect this is all part of the strategy to protect the car and protect the tyres. As Chelmy was worked very hard on that Aston Martin. I wouldn't be surprised if the Quatermass team right now are asking him how those tyres are feeling. So I suspect they're not feeling that comfortable anymore. But meanwhile, Mayer makes his way out the pit lane. Quite a quick stop. So he's been enjoying the battling, but he's also been able to save some of the fuel. On he goes for Worthy. And where will he be versus Andy Chell? Well, I suspect we'll find out in about 2 to 3 laps' time. But Reynolds still leads, so you can see him there coming into the picture, and it's 8.5 seconds back to the trio of Core, Penttilä and Abdullahi, or Aegis Abdullahi, we must say in full. And well, right now, your number 269 driver at the back of the trio, but he's going to be the danger man. We do see in the rear of the picture, that's Chris Jennings, who's a lap down. And well, Jennings, after taking that second stop, doing it so successfully, quite a quick splash and dash with that pit stop. Indeed, Heinz Mayer only 13.5 seconds, Jennings 15 seconds almost, well 14.8 to be a bit more precise. But right now, the Ford Mustang driver here, knowing really it's all about survival to the end of the race. There's no real places he can gain anymore, given the distance between other cars. It's been a bit of a challenge today once again, but I suspect for Jennings, it's been one of those rounds whereby it's all been about learning, and he will learn from that experience. It definitely was a stop and hold in the pit lane as far as we've been informed. It's all for an unsafe pit entry, but very unfortunate for him as he runs wide there, but that is to release a place to Matias Penttilä on the road, and shortly Rob Sharp will be putting a lap on him, and for the AM leader right now, will the Bathurst racing driver still very much in control. For John Roberts in the pit lane, he goes up onto the jacks there. The team are going to change 1 tyre, I suspect, if not 2. I don't think they have time for 2, unless he's not been saving as much fuel. Alternatively, they feel as though they need to. No, he comes down to the jacks immediately, so 1 tyre has been altered, and that car's going to go. So he makes way back out with a 14-second stop. And, well, meanwhile, Kim Such is into the pit lane as Andy Chell has gone another lap. So where is Heinz Mayer then? As they make the one around, Mark Johnson carries on. Ian Anderson already having served his 2 stops. He'll pass what will be Such. He has done so. Here's Mayer making his way out. And, well, Kim Such right now still being serviced. In fact, that car's still there. And, well, for Kim Such in, this is going to be a long pit stop. And I wonder, well, 21 seconds in the end almost. So for Kim Such, well, this has been a poor stop, and it has not been an efficient one. Meanwhile, into the pits now, Niels Core and Idris Abdullahi. They both come in the satellite racing pair. They release Matias Penttilä to his own devices for now. Matias Tem carries on. Stuart Reynolds carries on. We're seeing the splitting strategies here, but we are seeing a big pit window for the second pit stop, a much bigger one compared to the first one. So this is going to be a sign of just how much fuel is being saved. But what exactly will be the game plan for Satellite Racing? How do they beat this man? Well, as we do see Daniel Perry coming on in. Meanwhile, the Satellite Racing cars will release themselves. Niels Core comes back out ahead of Aegis Abdullahi. And, well, perhaps we didn't expect that, given the fact he was at the head of the pack, but he's been able to save that fuel. And, in fact, they're going to have Guy Edwards in amongst them. So this is a turn for the books. Guy Edwards has not got the jump here with the undercut. He's lost out. And Edwards, in the end, well, 17 seconds was his pit stop, stationary time. 16.7 to be a bit more precise, versus the 13.6 of Core and the 13.9 of Idris Abdullahi. So Edwards losing out now. But does he put the fight on immediately here? Because you'll notice the absence of Matias Penttilä. I think what he's got to do at this point is just hold his breath, hold his patience a little bit, unless he thinks he can attack Core immediately. Because should he fight, then suddenly I suspect they're all going to be losing out, and it will be the RD Simsport driver's night to remember instead. As Lee Berridge leaves the pit lane, and Martin Rendell do the same very shortly, or does the same I should say in proper English, but Berridge comes on out first, and well, Rendell's about to leave I suspect, as meanwhile we do see there the car of Andrew Marsden make its way onwards, and as he does so, we may be 2 laps down, but he's not giving up. He's going all the way to the end, which is what we love to see for the Sim Racing Magazine driver as he carries on down pit lane. Rendell then still being searched. In fact, this is a stop and hold for Rendell. It's unsafe pit entry, and that's going to be a minute-long stop there almost. It will be about 58 seconds if we get it right. And well, in fact, he's still being waited 59 seconds in the end, and well, that is going to be an absolute kick in terms of his aspirations. That's going to knock the wind out of his sails, and Mark Johnson comes out behind, and Johnson's going to notice now he's got a friend to play with in terms of those who've fallen foul of pit entry limits. And well, as Chris Jennings comes up behind, well, Andy Chell in the pit lane still and make his way onwards, and Chell in the end taking a 40-second pit stop. In fact, 38 seconds there as it comes and updated, and Andy Chell losing out a lot of time there. That won't be for unsafe pit entry, I don't believe. I wonder whether there's been some work done to that car for Quatermass Motorsport, because that's been a very long pit stop, an unexpected, really long one at that. We Nice one out there, and definitely a bit of a story for him. But meanwhile, Niels Core, Matias Penttilä and Guy Edwards together, and Penttilä has come out, and Niels Core takes the place off of him. So Core's taken back third place. Penttilä came out in third just ahead, and Matias Tem was still out there at the moment. And in fact, Matias Tem, having not made his second stop, he is 21 seconds ahead of the battle for third place. I don't think he's going to jump that, but he will have got a lot closer to it as a result of this long stintage. And Stuart Reynolds is still great as well. So Fury Sim Sports, they are going to go a very long distance on both stints here. They are really the kings of fuel saving today. And Niels Core, meanwhile, battling with Matias Penttilä, Guy Edwards and Benny Abdullahi. The quartet's back together once again. And no, this is not a barbershop quartet. This is going to be a GT4 quartet all the way to the very end with 10 minutes to go. But just before we see the continuation of their battling, we take a look back at how exactly it all went down between Core and Penttilä. So this was coming out the pit lane. Matias Penttilä had just left ahead, but in the end, Niels Core came out with more momentum out of Nord Curve. But the battle was not done initially before they got to turn 2. It was after in the braking zone, and that is where Penttilä immediately jumped back into the line. So then Guy Edwards lost out. Meanwhile, Niels Core has gained the most out of everyone once again. And well, the satellite racing driver here, I think there already is some gravitas to how he's been feeding with regards to the fact that on a different day, he could be a race winner. But unfortunately, it's just not worked out. He's really got the strategy now down the satellite racing driver. He's a master of this craft, I can tell you that. Stuart Reynolds, meanwhile, leaves the pit lane. He needs no drama. He just needs to be smart about this. He leaves safely, no stop and hold penalty, and now on course. So what will be another win this season, number 1 driver. Well, that's exactly what the doctor ordered. Meanwhile, Matias Tem leaving the pit lane, and look how much time he's gained. Matias Tem right now, well, he is only 1.8 seconds behind Idris Abdahi. Yes, you heard that right. The man who started from the pit lane after not making it to the grid due to a technical issue of the car, well, in fact, 2.1 seconds behind now as the time tail's updated, but he's been 2.1 seconds of a battle for second place. Fury Sim Sports, Matias Tem here today. Well, I'll tell you one thing. I know we don't give out what is medals for drivers of the round, but if we did, this is a huge effort for the 312 driver right now. This is going to go down in the history books. That's going to be the most places gained in a single race, as far as I'm aware, in SRM GT4 Challenge history. And right now, Matias Tem, if he can make it to second place in this one, and somehow in the next 8.5 minutes, he can go all the way to make it a 1-2 of Reynolds. Well, I'll tell you one thing. I think Stuart Reynolds will be saying to Matias Tem, no, you come join me on the top step of the podium, because this is incredible right now. But how much further can he go? Well, that we'll wait to see. But Rob Sharp, meanwhile, carrying on here, and your AM leader still in control. 9 seconds of the gap between him and Stephen Codburn, with Daniel Perry acting as the spacer between the two of them in that 8th place. But right now, your 9th place driver for Trackmouse Racing, we can see that Dennis Van Beelen trying to close him down little by little, but he's a pro, and you've got to go a further 12 seconds back before you do get to Paul Goffin, who right now has Ollie Carwadine closing little by little on him. Carwadine becoming an increasingly threat, and meanwhile Lee Berridge for 21.7 seconds behind. Unfortunately, there has been a bit of an incident for Ian Anderson that's dropped him out of the top 5 in the AM class, and here's a quick replay to explain. And this was Anderson at the time running after Lee Berridge for 5th place, made his way into Mercedes, and as he went onto the brakes and off of them, the rear of the car just coming around a bit too quick there, and in the end could not get the car to snap back into a straight line, and well, got himself turned around very quickly. But unfortunately for Ian Anderson, that's definitely relegated now out of a chance of a top 5 finish, I suspect, unless there's some late drama. But still, we'll have to wait and see. It's not over until it's over, and that checker flag still is 7 minutes and a final lap away. As we see the fight for second place, we ride on board, looking back from the rear of the satellite 42 of Niels Core. Home circuit, of course, here, and looking to try and deliver a big result. And Matias Penttilä, Guy Edwards and Benny Abdullahi all still pursuing him closely. But who is going to be the first to blink? Who's going to be the first to make a move here? That is what we're waiting to see. And remember now, they all will think as though they've got enough fuel in the car to be able to make it to the end of the race. Matias Tem has been dropped a little bit, and in fact Tem now is 3 seconds back. So I wonder if he's waiting for these drivers to fight here. I wonder if he's losing pace naturally just because of the fact they've all got the tire for one another, and if so, he'll be praying that it's going to be a bit of elbows out racing action. But I suspect all 4 drivers here are all thinking the same thing, which is, I want to fight, but I don't want to bring a 5th player into the game here. We need to just wait that little bit longer. Also, of course, there might be the question, has everybody got enough fuel to fight? Or do they need to save just a little bit of fuel and then focus on perhaps the last couple of laps? That's where the elbows will come out in their wide margins. All those faults, definitely all part of the game plan here. And indeed, it can all be mind games between drivers. But meanwhile, Mark Johnson playing some mind games in towards turn 1 to try and take 10th place in AM versus Kim Such. towards that opening corner Nord curve, hops over the curb, and it's going to be a bit wide there for Such. Does he pick up a yellow flag as a result of that off track? The answer is no. He actually didn't gain any time from it. He lifted off there, but Johnson's going to dive up the inside, knowing he's got the pace, and we'll take the place just like that. Smooth as clockwork there for Mark Johnson. Indeed, after that spill on the open lap coming out of this very bend, well, now 9. It's really going to be damage limitation here today in this championship campaign. Heinz has got Martin Rendell for close company, and Rendell, of course, did have that spin earlier on. He's trying to recover from that. Looking up the inside here versus Matt. Onto the brakes they go. And I think Rendell here is going to take this spot, unless Matt can beat him all the way around the outside. But in the end, he can't quite do so. And Martin Rendell will take 8th in the AM class off of him for now. But Mayer's going to try and come back here, heading up towards Mercedes. He'll look around the outside to the inside into the braking zone. And what's the Rowan-Worthy driver going to be able to do here? Can he force the door open? He's going to go for it. And the answer will be yes, he can for now. But does he outbrake himself? He does as well. And here Martin Rendell takes it back. But we must take you back to the front, ladies and gentlemen, because suddenly the fight for second is on. Niels Core, Matias Penttilä. Penttilä getting on the inside there and towards turn number 6. And now you can see with the gloves coming off, well, suddenly this battle is going to erupt. And the RD Simsport driver, Penttilä, inside to outside in towards Mercedes. Core still there on the inside. Onto the brakes he goes. And right now, can Penttilä go all the way around? They give each other space in the Ford Mustangs. But look behind, and then you see Guy Edwards. He's now itching for the fight as Penttilä comes off the corner, defends the inside. Brilliant bit of defensive driving in. Now that he's got the place, he's got the inside. But will he be able to hold it through Mobile World Curve? They roar the way past our camera. And they come in towards the right-hander. Penttilä still ahead. Core just made to go a little bit deeper. And well, that's not going to enable him to move forward. As Guy Edwards looks to the inside. But you can see there, Penttilä he immediately saying to him, if you're going to do that, I'm going to do the same as well. And right now, Guy Edwards under a lot of pressure from the second satellite racing car, but suddenly for Matias Tem, what was a 3-second gap is now a 1.5-second gap, and such is how quickly the fighting could cause them all to lose time. And well, as they make the way up towards another lap, they go on to lap number 32, 4 minutes to go, and my mathematical guess here is we've got another, what is 3 laps, including the one they've gone on to, given the fact that Stuart Reynolds is already made his way out of turn number 4. So therefore, the maths would say that he will get us onto a 34th and final lap at that point. Meanwhile, Matias Penttilä right now, well, he knows he's got at least 2, if not 3 laps to try and hold on here. This is not going to be easy all the way to the very end. He's got a lot of work to do, but we jump aboard with Guy Edwards. The McLaren driver from 6-7 Motorsports, after that very impressive qualifying points to start second place, it went a bit backwards at the start, and the undercut strategy seemed to work at first until it did not, as they get ready to head in towards the Spitsker hairpin. But right now, of course, he's got that balancing act. He can't fight forward without worrying about what's going on behind him, and Matias Tem right now is getting into the picture as well. But does Tem take some of the pressure off of Edwards? Does he make Idris Abdullahi look more backwards than forwards? That's always the fault there, but it's 5 drivers fighting for the final 2 overall podium spots, and all these pro drivers right now, all giving it their best. They're already putting on a brilliant display, and we don't want this race to end. It is going to have to end at some point, and someone's going to have to win those places, but who exactly is going to win them? Where they come from left into right, through turn number 10 they go, and Guy Edwards right now, just not having the run out of the corner. In fact, that's going to cost him just that little bit of time, and we falls back just a little bit more, coming in towards the second stadium section. He just has to lie here on Matias Tem. May fall a bit further back, as meanwhile Guy Edwards makes a wide run out of turn number 11, and as he does so, here comes Idris Abdullahi trying to go around the outside. Can he get it done? Almost there. He's still too wide into 13. Can he get it to the inside of Sud curve? He's going to go for it. Takes a lot of curb, but Edwards has to give him the space, and Idris Abdullahi does find the place at the end. Lovely move, but now will Edwards come back at him, or will this be a sign right now that Idris Abdullahi is essentially saying to his teammate Niels Core, go Niels, I've got this covered. You need to hunt down that second place. I'll hold them off. But as they come up in towards Nord curve, we can see that Andy Shell stepping aside, respects to the blue flags. 9, there's a huge pack of cars coming through, and he wants no role to play in it. Well done to him for the awareness. We're on to the penultimate lap then. Lap 33 here in Germany at the Hockenheimring, Baden-Württemberg, and right now still places to be made here inside this top 5 overall. Your race leader, Stuart Reynolds, seems to be in a postcode of his own at the moment, 12 seconds up the road, but right now second through to 6th. It's anybody's guess who's going to be taking it. As we roar the way on through, well, Rob Sharp being the best part of 8 seconds behind. Here is the AM leader. Well, he'll be probably thinking to himself right now, he's very happy not to be part of that anymore. But he has got Daniel Perry quickly closing on him and gaining 1.2 seconds a lap over the last couple of laps on average. So Perry's going to be with him going on to the final lap at this rate of knots. But Ollie Carbadine almost on the back of Paul Goffin now. He's well within attacking distance here as they come down in towards turn number 2 within 3 attempts. And well, that's lunging distance there. And the Rowan-Worthy driver's going to want an opportunity. And what a way this battle has gradually built up over time. The Rowan-Worthy driver, Carbadine, has been closer thereabout, but a bit of a poor run out of 4. With a little bit of power oversteer there. And I think the rear tyres on this car gradually letting go. And I think the number 14 driver at this point, he's got the pace and enthusiasm. The problem is he hasn't quite got the car under him anymore to be able to make the moves. Whereas Paul Goffin seems to. I think he's protected the tyres just that little bit better. But Carbadine close here for that podium. Indeed, it'd be another rare podium for the Rowan-worthy driver. But how far he has come over the course of this season, I can tell you that, ladies and gentlemen. Well, right now, if he picked up a podium here today, that would feel incredibly rewarding. But meanwhile, for Stuart Reynolds, the biggest reward of them all is only what is 1 lap away. 12 seconds the advantage he has on Matias Penttilä, but meanwhile, can he hold on for the second place spot here? And well, nil score. Bennett just up to he got Edwards and Matias Tem all with him as they got onto one last tour of the Hockenheimring. Here they go through Nord Curve, and right now still ahead. And still in control of this at the moment, the RD Supersport driver from Finland. Half a second is the gap. That is nowhere near close to offer a move there for Core. So Core's got to get within 3 tenths, really, by the time he gets to the next heavy braking zone to be able to think about going for a move. But he's been covered by his teammate from Satellite Racing. He just had Lahi, and Guy Edwards and Matias Tem just that bit further back. But after that brilliant battle between the 269 and the number 7 for fourth place, the things seem to have gone a little bit static between them for now. Further back, Mark Johnson closing on Heinz Mouth for 9th place in Am, and will be 17th place overall. Looking to go on the attack, perhaps in towards turn number 8. And this will all be about salvaging some points out of a difficult day to stomach. But still, he's got to think back of the positive times. I know he had the pace here today to finish inside the top 5. But didn't quite click together in the end. That early mistake cost him. But he still kept his head down and tried to push on as best he can. As he makes his way in towards what will be Mobile 1 curve. But they will go one more lap, these two. Given the fact the leader right now is just behind them. And well, man, making sure that Johnson can't get close enough in towards turn 12 as they make their way through the corner. Here is your race leader. And as he comes through the left-hander, only a couple more quarters to go. Matias Penttilä still ahead at the moment. No real change in this battle for second through to 6th. I think it may be staying stationary, ladies and gentlemen, but we will see. But meanwhile, for Stuart Reynolds, where it was a question of when would we see it again. And well, after the misery of losing out to the victory at Bathurst, it's back to gleeful joy for Stuart Reynolds because he's back on top once again. He takes victory here today overall for Fury Sim Sports. But who will be runner-up? It's going to be Matias Penttilä by looks like he emerges in the final quarter. And whilst it may not be the win today, this will feel like a win as he tops the order there, second ahead of Niels Core, who makes it back onto the podium. Benedict Abdullah, he guided to Matias Tem, complete your top 6. And then here comes Rob Sharp to make it another AM win this season. The Bathurst racing driver in control today from pole to victory. Ahead of Daniel Perry. And then it will be Stephen Codman, who'll be runner-up today in the AM class. And in the end, taking 9th overall. A solid day for the Trackmouse racing driver, but that first win of the season still waits for him. Dennis Van Beelen finishes just behind, completing the top 10 for what will be Chicane Online Racing. And then caught from the core car, it will be to a cool and calm performance from Paul Goffin, because whilst Ollie Carbadine was 3 tenths behind at the finish, it wasn't enough, and Goffin will complete the AM podium ahead of Carbadine for Rowan-worthy. And then it will be a further 25 seconds back before we do see Lee Berridge, who in his battle with his teammate John Roberts for 5th place in the AM class today, was they sweep the way through the last couple of quarters. And the number 41 here, it has been bruised, but it's never been broken. And right now for Lee Berridge, it may not be the highest of a podium here at the Hockenheimring, but it'll feel a high as he's going to come home in 5th as he brings it to the line and will does so there. And John Roberts comes through just behind in 6th in the AM class, 14th overall. And then got a bit more time before we do get to Ian Anderson. Here he comes. And well, unfortunately today for the 4-5 driver, after that brilliant qualifying performance, he couldn't quite keep it together over the distance, trying to go for the undercut, but a spin cost him the opportunity. He takes 15th and 7th in the AM class. Martin Rendell comes on through behind the Scotsman, and then on a redemption drive takes over 16th place, 8th in AM, and it will be Mark Johnson in 17th for what will be at the Trackmouse Racing team. A frustrating day today after the elation of Bathurst. Heinz Mauer completes the AM top 10 in 18th, and then we will see Kim Such come home 19th in the pit lane ahead of Chris Jennings, I do believe. Both of them on a cool-down lap there, and both classified as a lap down at the finish. Andy Chell, 21st out of Gavin Gardner. My goodness, I'm getting a name mixed up there of a driver of another series. I do apologise sincerely for that. Jules Garner taking home at 22nd there, and then Andrew at Marston at 23rd. But goodness me, ladies and gentlemen, what a race here today. And as Niels Core cools them down, and he'll be absolutely pleased with the way it's gone. For Rob Sharp, meanwhile, with the Aburris racing driver, he could yet be right back towards the very front of the AM Championship, and the points from today will definitely give him the confidence to think that this AM Championship is far from sealed by anybody so far, and we've still got 3 more rounds to go, and these are the results that truly do matter. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, we take a look to the scenic view and with your race results, subject to any stewards' inquiries. And here today in Germany at the Hockenheimring Baden-Württemberg circuit, this Grand Prix layout welcomed our drivers, and over the course of 60 minutes of racing action for round number 5 of Season 8 of the Sim Racing Magazine GT4 Challenge, brought to you on iRacing and powered by Oris Digital, we saw Stuart Reynolds take victory for Fury Sim Sport, making up for the disappointment of Bathurst, and in taking that win by almost 12 seconds over RD Simsport's Matias Penttilä. The shoe may have been on the other foot today, and Penttilä had to be the second place finisher, but what a defence he put up in the end, and the strategy that came with it, and made sure that Niels Kor could not quite take that third for Satellite Racing, but he was ahead and on the podium ahead of his teammate of Ben Idris Abdullahi. It was full for Idris Abdullahi then, ahead of Guy Edwards, the 6-7 motorsport driver who had all the pace, but that undercut strategy in it, whilst it worked out so well in the first stint, the fact he used so much fuel in the end to try and chase after Reynolds, it didn't pay off, and sadly he fell back into the clutches of the big battle for the final spot of the podium. He got engulfed by it, and he rounded off the top 5 instead. But for the McLaren driver, it was then only 3 tenths aligned to Fury Sim Sport's Matias Tem, who fought his way all the way out from the very back of the field due to a pit lane start with a technical issue on the grid, and what a drive to finish in 6th there. Not quite a podium, but he was in the hunt for it right at the end. Rob Sharp, your AM winner. The Abruzzo Racing driver 7th on the overall grid. He'll be absolutely pleased as punch with that. 9 that the Scotsman now has picked up that second win of the season, and what a vital one it is. It puts him on parity with Paul Goffin. Daniel Perry taking 8th there. The Paddock Motorsport driver splitting the first and second place finishers in the AM class, because behind him by 13 seconds was Stephen Quadman for Trackmouse for Racing. Dennis Van Beelen took 10th place there for Chicane Online Racing. A bit of a uphill battle today with the circuit and the car, and Paul Goffin for Sim Racing Magazine just holding on to the final spot on the AM podium. Best the rest of the length ahead of Ollie Carbadine, who finished only 3.5 tenths behind. From the Rowan-worthy driver, it was then a sizable gap of 27 seconds to Lee Berridge of Boosted Motorsport, who finished ahead of his teammate John Roberts, and then Ian Anderson was a further 10 seconds adrift, with Martin Rendell a stop and hold penalty in his second pit stop, ruining his opportunity to recover to a top 5 in the AM class. But he was 3 seconds ahead of Mark Johnson, whose own open lap spin, plus a stop and hold penalty when he came into the pit lane for the first time. That really scuppered his day, and Heinz Mayer, Kim Such and Chris Jennings completed your top 20, with Such and Jennings a lap down at the finish. Outside the top 20 overall, we did see Andy Chell a lap down alongside Jules Gardner, and then we did see 3 laps down there to Andrew Marsden for Sim Racing Magazine behind his teammate, but never retiring. And sadly, we did lose early on in the race due to a spin and some damage to the car. We lost Paddock Motorsport's Daniel Osler. But what about in the AM class, I hear you ask? Because, of course, we do see points being paid to these drivers based on where they finished. And in our AM class runners, Rob Sharp for Abruzzo Racing taking that crucial win by what was 13.7 seconds over Trackmouse Racing Stephen Codman. And Sharp sees the wins coming. Meanwhile, Stephen Codman, the win waits. And that first win will arrive someday, we're sure of it. SRM's Paul Goffin round off the podium there, a further 15 seconds behind, but only what was the best part of 3.5 tenths ahead of Ollie Carbadine for Rowan-worthy, who would love to return to the podium, but he's still got a bit of a wait to do that. And then Boosted Motorsport completed 5th and 6th, Lee Berridge ahead of John Roberts in the battle with the 2 teammates. Ian Anderson, for See You Next Tuesday, had the pace to be on the podium, if not take the win, but unfortunately today a mistake, and also an undercut strategy that didn't pay off, so he finished 7th, and behind the Scotsman was the Briton of Martin Rendell with that stop and hold penalty, scuppering his chances after an early spin as well, and we did see Mark Johnson and Heinz Mayer complete the AM top 10. From the Rowan-worthy driver, it was a lap down to Kim Such, Oris Racing ahead of QMS Motorsport's Andy Chell, who whilst he may not finish inside the top 10, he battled furiously today, and we loved him for it, and he was still ahead of Jules Gardner, who finished 13th, and then 3 laps down, but a finisher, Andrew Marsden in 14th place there for Sim Racing Magazine behind his teammate. Well, ladies and gentlemen, that's a rundown of the results subject to any insurance inquiries, and whilst our racing may have come to a close, this broadcast does not, because coming up in approximately what will be 5 minutes time, we'll be getting ourselves all in place for our post-round interviews from our volunteer drivers, and they've got probably plenty to say about the great fighting we saw here today at the Hockenheimring, so let's not dilly-dally, let's get ready for those interviews, and we'll be back as soon as we possibly can. Alrighty, ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, it is time to kick off our post-round interviews. And we begin with a driver in the AM class today. We're going to come to the man who found himself in the thick of the fighting throughout. It's none other than Andy Chell, who now joins me in the interview room. Andy, good evening to you, and what a round from yourself today. Perhaps not the result you were targeting, but to be fair, you gave us plenty of fighting every step of the way.
Evening, Paul. It's been a while, hasn't it? Nice to be back on track with you. Yeah. I was just joking with the others in the debrief room. I wish I was fast enough in these GT4s to not have to be good enough to defend, if I'm honest with you. But no, all joking aside, I think I've had a really, really fun race today. It might not be the result we were after. I think a slight mistake, slight miscalculation in when to switch tyres caused a bit of an issue, but overall still happy. Come out with a very clean race and a very fun race with Hines and a few others. I think Martin, we had I think really good battles all the way through, so yeah, really enjoyed it.
Oh, that's absolutely fantastic. And I can appreciate there you said about the fact that you'd like to be fast and not have to defend as well as you do. But the flip side of the coin is, of course, you've given us plenty of entertainment in a round that's definitely had so many stories today. But focusing a bit more on your story, in qualifying, 22nd overall, 12th in the AM class. Were you expecting to be around there based on your practice times? Were you a bit shocked to see yourself a bit further down? Because we thought you had the pace to perhaps be a little bit closer to the top 10 in AM.
Yeah, I won't lie. Yeah, a little bit. The practice hasn't been as great as it could have been, just due to work restrictions, unfortunately. So, but even then, yeah, the practice, I was doing times a bit better than here tonight. So, it's not great. Unfortunately, just couldn't get the car to hook up the way it has been in practice. So, want to take away and have a look at why there was a bit of a disparity between practice and the racetrack. I mean, that can happen, but it's interesting the differences there within that. So yeah, a little bit more disappointing than I would have liked in qualifying, but as I always say, it is what it is, and we take the good with the bad, and we just at that point had to refocus and think about, okay, we haven't qualified exactly where we were expecting. What can we do strategy wise to get up there a bit better and see what we can do? So yeah, it was a little bit of a disappointment, but as I say, we work around it.
Oh, 100%. I mean, if qualifying was a disappointment, well, let's say the start of your race then was anything less than absolute excitement. I mean, yes, there were a couple of drivers who got it a bit wrong, but you found yourself battling straight away for, I think it was 7th or 8th place in AM, and fighting amongst the boosted motorsport drivers. We also saw the likes of Heinz Mag get involved there. As we look back at some of the pictures here, I mean, it was absolutely balmy battle in action.
Yeah, it was. It was fantastic. And exactly like you say, a little bit of luck with some drivers not having as good of a start as they probably would have liked, but yeah, it was it was kind of like the Red Seal of it. Everything parted. It was like, am I getting where I think I'm getting here? Yes, okay, let's go for it and see what happens. Won't lie, I had a fuel target that kind of went out the window when that started happening, because it's one of them, isn't it? It's either save fuel or fight. Which one do you do? And the unfortunately, not having Mike with me tonight, the "Let's go racing" voice won out. But yeah, it was a fantastic start, to be honest with you.
Oh, a fantastic start. And whilst it's a bit of a shame you didn't have Michael the pit wall, so therefore the devil on your shoulder won in terms of saying, forget about the fuel, just have the fun. And when we saw you out there, some absolutely brilliant defending. And your one place you seem to be so strong at defending were into the hairpins, turn 2 and also turn 6. You just seem to have this knack of being able to brake later than anybody else in that Aston Martin and get the power down.
Yeah, so it was pretty much how I do, and I've said this before. I'll show somebody where I'm going to go if I'm fighting with them. I'll usually cover the inside line because that's the best line to go. And the Aston has got fantastic traction. I mean, on the fixed setup, it struggles a lot, but one thing it does have is fantastic traction. So it was something that I knew if I could get on to the apex first, slow down enough not to run out wide and give the other person enough room out wide, because I'm putting them out wide. Then I knew the Aston would break away back down off the back of off the exit. So it was one of them where it was know where the strengths of the car were and just play to it. Didn't expect it to be as good on the brakes as it was. To be honest, the Mercedes and the Porsche are usually better on the brakes than the Aston, but I think it was just one of them of just being as brave as I could, Daniel Ricciardo in it kind of thing. And again, just trying to be as respectful as I can, but also not giving up that place without a fight sort of thing. So, but yeah, it was one of them where it was like, just know where the strengths are and go from there.
Well, you definitely showed those strengths round, and after having to give up some of the places, we did see an absolutely epically long battle between yourself and Heinz. Man, Heinz at one point did get ahead, but he made a mistake and you got back ahead of him. I think Heinz has had the closest fight he's seen all season so far with yourself. The two of you, I mean, it was literally chalk and cheese.
Yeah, it was. It was fantastic racing. He made me work. Honestly, every lap he made me work. I genuinely sweated. So yeah, it was fantastic. And again, it's just one of them where it was watching Heinz see where he was stronger, so I knew where I had to try and tighten myself up a little. He was faster than me into Mercedes. I think every lap he was faster than me into Mercedes and into the quick right before the second hairpin. He was faster than me, but again, like I say, knowing where the Aston was stronger than him, I could position myself to defend. So yeah, it was absolutely epic battle. I really enjoyed it.
Well, an epic battle, but in the end, you did have to come in for what was a bit of an extended fuel stop for that second pit stop, which did relegate you down to a 12th place finish in the AM class. But the upside being you've had an absolute battle brewing round of racing, and we've still got 3 more to go. Next up, of course, we're to the United Kingdom and for the UK's fastest circuit, Thruxton. Are you looking forward to it?
Yeah, I mean, as I've always said to you, I like the fast circuit, so hopefully, and I've ran Thruxton quite a lot, so hopefully it'll go quite well. There is one round coming up that I am not looking forward to. We'll see how that goes when I get to it, but Thruxton, I'm looking forward to. So yeah, I'm hopeful that the Aston's relatively decent top speed and its ability to get off corners will help out into the long straights for Thruxton. So we'll see how we get on, but yeah, hopefully it'll go well.
Well, we definitely look forward to seeing you deliver what you can out the Aston Martin at the Thruxton circuit. But just before I do let you go, is there anyone you'd like to give a shout out or a mention to on the broadcast?
First and foremost, mate, to yourself. It's always a pleasure to watch these streams back, and if you didn't put them on for us, we wouldn't have a fantastic place for exhibition. The sort of racing you've seen tonight, really. All of the SRM team that put on this championship, really appreciate it. It's as you know, it's my first time here, and I really feel welcomed, and everyone's greeted me and taken me in as if I've been here for years. So I really do appreciate that. All of the Quatermass team, even though they're not here tonight in the pit wall, they all really do support and help out. And then finally to my beautiful wife, who, if she didn't let me come racing, you wouldn't get to speak to me. So yeah, thank you very much to everybody.
Well, a big thank you to you, Andy, and also to your wife for having the opportunity to race with us and also get to chat with us in the post-round interview. It's never the same when you're not on the grid, I can tell you that, and you've delivered plenty of action for us today. We look forward to plenty more at Thruxton in 2 weeks' time. But until then, my friend, congratulations on your result today, and have a lovely rest of your evening.
And you, matey, thank you very much.
So hearing there from a very happy Andy Chell, mentioning the fact that qualifying was a little bit of a disappointment given the pace he did bring to the table. However, regrouped, and when we did go racing, whilst he did benefit from a bit of good luck with there being a couple of altercations between drivers, particularly was Lee Berridge's big lunge in towards Mercedes that we saw early on. At the same time as well, Andy did have the pace, and he put on an absolutely brilliant display of battle him. As we do see him here trying to keep Martin Rendell behind for some time. The downside of it, of course, was the fact that fuel saving went out the window. But he gave us a round where he showed what he can do in that Aston Martin and was able to really enjoy a brilliant scrap with Heinz Matt until the fuel tank said no on that second pit stop. But we head to Thruxton. He's looking forward to the fast-flying circuit and thinking he can bring out the best in the Aston Martin there. And we look forward to seeing just how high he can get into that top 10. And could he even chase down a top 5 in the AM class there? We'll have to wait and see. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, we've got more interviews waiting, so therefore let's not keep them waiting any longer. We'll be back very shortly for our next interview. And so, ladies and gentlemen, we stay in the AM class, but joining me now in the interview room is now your two-time winner for the season. It's none other than Rob Sharp for Boris Racing. Rob, good evening to you. I mean, when the wins come, they feel special, and I think this one is going to feel quite special.
Yeah, that was rather unexpected, actually. Yeah. So, yeah, it's my third win actually this season.
Oh,
so,
third win. My
yeah,
apologies. Yes, I'll get you mixed up with Paul Goffin. That's why I'm thinking it's 2-2. My bad. Oh, goodness me. But a third win there, and it all started with a pole lap.
Yeah, yeah. Well, that was completely unexpected as well, because during practice, you know, I could see that like Stephen was way quicker than me, and I expected Mark to be up there as well because he always pops in a quick lap. So to come away with pole was surprising and very satisfying. Yeah, great.
Well, very satisfying pole lap. And like you say, when there was so much close competition between yourself and the likes of Stephen Codman and Ian Anderson. But in the race, I mean, it all seemed to slot so nicely together for yourself at the start, with the fact that you held on to lead and then there was a pro pack in front that just helped you pull away.
Yeah, yeah, and I couldn't understand how I was keeping up with them, at least for a few laps till kind of around about the first stop. So yes, because Stephen was challenging early on, and yeah, I couldn't really drop him. But then I think after the first pit stop, the gap just grew a little bit, and yeah, with the help of the group in front, it was great. I was kind of on my own without much pressure for pretty much all of the race. It was a very nice race to run.
That wasn't a nice race, like you say, it was a nice race to run there, but as time went on, we definitely got to see you get the most out of the Porsche. I mean, it must have felt a little bit worrying, perhaps, that first half a lap, all about straights and heavy braking zones. The Porsche will be quick out the corners, but it hasn't got the speed. But then the second half lap, it's all about corners, and you could just relax through there.
Yeah, except that it's pretty slippy. This track it's weird because it wears the tires so much, but you can understeer through one corner and oversteer through the next. So you've actually got to be very careful and very smooth. Otherwise you get bitten. So yeah. So in some ways, Paul, the corners with the tricky bits and the straights were, well, while I'm a little bit slower, at least you get a chance to breathe.
Oh, indeed. A bit of breathing room there. And what we did see over the distance was that you continued to gap Stephen Codman all the way through to the end. It did look as though Steve was able to stay with you on that first stint, but also quite a bit of fuel saving done by yourself.
A little bit, not a lot actually. A little bit, but that wasn't really part of the strategy. My strategy was just to drive within myself, because I knew it's so easy to lose it here. As I understand, there were quite a few little incidents here and there with people spinning and things, and I didn't want to be one of those incidents. So I was just trying to drive within myself and do reasonably consistent laps. I think my pace was helped a little bit because I changed the left-hand tires at the first pit stop, because it does eat the tires, this track.
Well, in the end, it all worked out very nicely for yourself. Although I do have to ask, with our second through to sixth runners, all pros really fighting hard for those positions towards the end, were you worried perhaps that you get caught up in that battle and that would enable Steve to catch up to you?
Yeah, absolutely. There was a point, and I can't remember when it was in the race, where I was catching them, and that's exactly the thought that went through my head. I don't want to get caught up in this. I don't want to overtake any of them, and I don't want to be slowed down by them. But I needn't have worried, because they all sorted themselves out and trotted off into the distance, so it was fine.
Well, they cleared up their batting enough for you to feel safe, and in the end, you had the pace to stay safe from Stephen Codman, and with that, taking your third win of the season. I mean, you've got to be starting to believe to yourself now that this championship in the AM class could definitely be yours for the taking with 3 rounds to go.
Well, maybe, but that's kind of not what I'm thinking. I'm just trying to take each race as it comes, and we'll just see how it goes. It's so easy for everything to go horribly wrong. So we'll just see what happens, Paul.
Oh, fair play. Well, speaking of things happening, next up we've got Thruxton, the fastest circuit in the United Kingdom in 2 weeks' time. How are you feeling for it?
Well, I've never actually driven on Thruxton in iRacing, so I better go away and practice. I like watching the BTCC there. It does look at an exciting circuit, so I think it was going to be. It might be some rain there, if I remember correctly. I can't remember now. But yeah, it's going to be. I'm excited for it, basically. Yeah.
Oh, fantastic. We're excited at the prospect of seeing whether you can make it 4 wins in the AM class this season at Thruxton, or at least continue a run of podiums there. But just before we do let you go, is there anyone you'd like to give a shout out or a thank you to on the broadcast?
I'll give a shout out to my brother Stuart, who I know was watching tonight. So I hope he enjoyed the race. Obviously to yourselves as well. You know, what a great broadcast. Thanks, Paul.
Well, thank you, Robert. It's been a blast having you join me in the interview room. Congratulations today on adding another win to your tally in the AM class. We look forward to seeing if you can continue the run at Thruxton. But until then, celebrate it and have a wonderful rest of your evening.
Thanks very much. Cheers now.
And so, ladies and gentlemen, that was Ouroboros racing driver Rob Sharp there in the number 68. And we do owe an apology there for the fact that he is a 3-time winner in the AM class, not a 2-time winner there. And we did get him mixed up with the 1 win that Paul Goffin has had early on in the season. And well, that all fits it together because, of course, we do have 3 wins now for Rob Sharp, 1 for Paul Goffin and 1 for Mark Johnson. Well, we definitely won't make that mistake twice. But make no mistake, the Ouroboros racing driver Rob Sharp absolutely flying high here today, and was surprised himself in the fact that after such a close qualifying session between himself, Ian Anderson and Stephen Codman, that he was the one who came out on top. And when doing so, then really gave himself the opportunity to glue himself to the back of the pros. I mentioned there his biggest fear was that they would fight too much and Stephen Codman would be able to close the gap on a circuit that's proven to be very slippery and very little grip available. But still, Rob getting the job done, no doubt about it, and not thinking about what lies ahead. He's thinking about what is round to round, and well, he's keeping himself grounded, and that may be the secret ingredient to what could be a successful AM Championship campaign. But we'll see where he can continue that stride at Thruxton in 2 weeks' time. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, we've got one more interview to come at least. We'll be right back. We're heading to the pro class. And so, ladies and gentlemen, it's my pleasure to have joining me now in the interview room none other than Stuart Reynolds, your class winner and overall winner today. And there's a pro performance from him. Stuart, good evening to you. What a result. I mean, after the perhaps disappointment, we could say, of Bathurst not taking the win there, this must feel as though it's made up for every moment of it.
Good evening, Paul. Yeah, definitely made up for it. It was a bit heartbreaking losing out to Matias at Bathurst, but made sure I thumped my foot and got on with it.
Well, you definitely got on with the job and wasted no time. And it all began, of course, with pole position in qualifying and quite a close qualifying session in the end. Were you surprised, perhaps, to see the mixture of cars queuing up behind you? Because it's not only been Mercedes taking to the front row for Mustangs. We had Guy Edwards' McLaren there, and indeed, we had Mustangs behind him as well.
Yeah, I was a bit surprised how quick that McLaren was. When I saw it put it on provisional pole, I was like, oh, that's a bit quicker than I thought it was going to be. So that lap I put in took some doing.
Well, you definitely had to dig deep. I have to ask, were you thinking that you were suddenly experiencing the second coming of Alex Gull from season 7 in Guy Edwards?
yeah, he was definitely a lot quicker than I thought he was going to be. The McLaren, there's a certain taste to driving styles, and I've tried driving it. I can't drive it, so fair play to him for making that thing go around a track quickly.
Now, he might have been able to make that car go quickly in qualifying, but in the race, we saw you get an absolutely brilliant start. If you don't mind me asking, how did you go about the start procedure? Because that seemed to really seal a nice 1 second gap for you by the time we got to turn 2.
It's hard to explain. You have to try and catch them by surprise sometimes. Because with iRacing, you can go once the safety car's pitted. So sometimes you can go a little bit before the green light's gone out. So it's all a little bit of a surprise sometimes to them, I think.
Well, you definitely took the field by surprise and storm, and after the opening couple laps, we did see that gap open up quite considerably. Were you perhaps surprised at the rate you were growing that gap, or is that what you expected?
I was surprised with the pace Guy had in qualifying. I was expecting him to stick with me. But because I was left alone, I kind of just got into a rhythm and just saved the tyres, saved a load of fuel, and I think that's what really helped was the fuel saving as well.
Now, some big fuel saving being done by yourself and also by your rivals, but we did see yourself and also your teammate Matias Penttilä go very long. I think both of you going 14 laps in that opening stint, one more than anybody else, and going 2 more laps in the second stint than anybody else. I mean, was that always the plan?
No, I didn't have a plan. I just kind of fuel saved them to see how many laps I could do. Matias had mentioned that if you fuel saved a little bit, you could save a lap, but he didn't tell me how many laps I could do. He just said that you could save a lap. So.
Oh, I love it. A bit of a drive into the unknown, but to be fair, you definitely brought to light just how powerful the fuel saving was today, and at no point really were you within touching distance of any of the guys behind. I mean, I don't know if you're aware about the battle for second through to 6th, but I can imagine if you were looking at your relative, you're probably thinking, oh, what's going on back there? Yeah,
well, obviously, Matias caught up to him near the end, so I knew he'd done really well to get from pit lane to 6th, to be fair. He was a little bit disappointed they didn't fight as much as fight a bit more because he thought he might be able to pip them if they started fighting. But yeah, it was. I'd have liked to have been involved, but I was quite happy being out in front as well.
Well, without a doubt, a big result for yourself and a runaway win, if you will, almost to the tune of 12 seconds. So a win's back on the board. 3 rounds to go. Next up, Thruxton. How are you feeling for the fastest circuit in the UK?
I'll be honest with you, I haven't really done many laps around there, so it's going to be a bit of a shock. The last time I did any racing around there was in a TCR, so that was front-wheel drive, so I think it's going to be a little bit more leery in a GT4.
Well, it might be a bit loose, but we'll have to see whether you can tame the Mercedes GT4 and wrangle it to another win. But just before we do let you go, I have to ask, as always, is there anyone that you'd like to give a shout-out or a thank you to on the broadcast?
Just Fury Sim Sport for qualifying for the 24-hour esports league that's starting soon as well. And obviously our sponsors Abruzzi.
Well, Stuart, congratulations to yourself for your results and to the team for qualifying for the 24-hour series, and wish you and the team all the best luck with that. But of course, you've been an absolute star today. Well done and added another win to your campaign. We'll see you at Thruxton to see whether you can make it back-to-back wins. But until then, celebrate the result and have a lovely rest of your evening.
Thank you, Paul. You too, mate.
So hearing that, ladies and gentlemen, from Stuart Reynolds, your winner today, overall and in pro, and what a way he went about doing so. In the end, taking that pole position, but admitting there a little bit of a surprise in the fact that there definitely was the very close pace of many of his rivals, including Guy Edwards in that McLaren 570S, and was not expecting him to be right there, but he was. But in the end, he was able to open up that gap by surprising everybody at the start, and in doing so, just made sure that his lead never fell apart. The pace he had was also with a lot of fuel saving, and mentioned there the fact that his teammate Matias had mentioned him, that being Matias Penttilä, that if you fuel save, you will be able to get an extra lap, but he wasn't told how much he needed to do, and he just kept fuel saving, and in the end added multiple laps onto that second stint. And well, for Stuart Reynolds, with all the fighting going on for second behind, it really was all in the bag for him, and a big result there. And for the Fury Simsport driver, well, the belief is back. Thruxton is next, but he hasn't done too many laps around there, so he's going to get practice in. But if he does, well, you never know what they say. Practice makes perfect, and he could definitely be making a perfect run of results so late on in the season. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, that's all our interviews for today, and therefore we are going to wrap up. But just before we do, let's give you a quick recap of who exactly we've interviewed today. And as we can see, we've had 3 interviews tonight. We started off with Andy Chell from Quake Mass Motorsport in the AM class, talking out a round filled with battling for him. And in the end, it was 12th in class in qualifying, as it was 12th in class in the race. But he enjoyed himself out there either way, and well, he's not left himself if any disgrace. Then Rob Sharp, the Bathurst racing driver, also in AM there, at the other end of the spectrum, taking the win. But it was a relatively quiet race for him after he took that pole lap and was able to run away with it. But his biggest concern was getting caught up in the lead battle for second place overall. But he didn't get quite caught up in that, and nobody could catch up to the man who took victory today, who we spoke to last, and it was Stuart Reynolds for Fury Simsport, with a monster win, making up for the disappointment of Bathurst, and right now definitely back on top and continue to move forward. A big thank you to all 3 of them for their time in the interview room, and a well done to all 3 of our interviewees for their brilliant performances, and long may our performances from our drives continue as we make our way into our next round. But with that, it is now time for us to wrap up. Thank you very much for watching, and if you've enjoyed today's show and perhaps you're sat there right now wanting to know more about the Sim Racing Magazine community and how you can potentially get on the grid, well, of course, the best way to do so is join the official Discord. Invite link available on screen, and if you do so, well, you'll find yourself in amongst one of the friendliest and most gentlemanly racing communities in the world, ladies and gentlemen. We've got drivers from around the globe, and we'd love to see you on the grid. If you're up for fair racing, well, you've definitely got a good home at Sim Racing Magazine. We'd also like to take a moment to say a big thank you to our series sponsor, and that is Oris Digital. And for those not in the know, what is Oris Digital all about? Well, small teams can make a huge impact in the digital marketing and e-commerce space, and Oris Digital knows that best. With 20 years of collective experience in growing businesses through online marketing channels via the provision of services including affiliate management, Amazon marketing, and digital strategy, Oris Digital delivers tangible results to its clients. So if you'd like to know more about how Oris Digital can help you grow your business, be sure to head to their website today at www.oris.digital. With that, we'd also like to say a big thank you and a shout out there to one of our series partners, which does include a Boris Watch. One of our drivers, Rob Sharp, who we heard from earlier on, runs a Boris Watch, which designs and markets watch faces of smartwatches running Google's Wear OS. This SRAM-themed watch face that you see on screen is available in the Google Play Store by just searching for GT4C. It features a pit board that includes your race position, which improves as you near your step target for the day, a racetrack with selectable colours for each sector, and the trademark SRM branding, along with other useful information such as your heart rate, so you can manage your excitement level in the next SRM race. And if you'd like to know more about Boris Watch's watch faces smartwatches, why not head to their website at www.boris.com. But also, ladies and gentlemen, we'd like to give a big shout out to our series partner of Roamworthy. Now, buying the perfect caravan, motorhome or campervan can be an activity which leaves you going around in circles, but not with Roamworthy. Built by technology people who love the road, Roamworthy provides you with the tools you need to put you in the fast lane to buying the caravan, motorhome or campervan which meets your requirements via a website that is packed with real stock and no pushy sales personnel. So therefore, if you'd like to know more, be sure to head to www.roamworthy.co.uk today. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, that's all we've got time for today. And next up on our tour around the globe for the Season 8 of the GT4 Challenge by Sim Racing Magazine, we head to the United Kingdom, and it's to the Thruxton Circuit, the self-proclaimed fastest circuit in the United Kingdom, and it lives up to that reputation. It's going to be fast, it's going to be furious, and the only place to catch it will be live from Circuit Side on Tuesday, the 12th of May 2026. You won't want to miss it, because in the overall Drivers' Championship, well, win today has definitely propelled Stuart Reynolds to new heights at the front, and he will open up that gap to the best part of 20 points, if not more, versus his rivals. Meanwhile, in the AM Championship, where Mark Johnson coming to a foul moment earlier in the race, and with Rob Sharp making it now 3 wins in the season, it'll be tight at the top, and the two will be going toe-to-toe. But can Johnson make this round a blip? Can he make sure the bad luck doesn't come back? Can Rob Sharp make it 4 wins next time out? Or will we see a new name take their way to the very top of the podium, given we've had so many impressive performances today? Could Stephen Codman perhaps even take his first AM win of the season? Well, we'll have to wait and see. It will happen next time in 2 weeks' time. Don't miss the date. But until then, ladies and gentlemen, we have been the Sim Racing Magazine GT4 Challenge. I've been your host and commentator, Paul Walsh. You've been tuning into a Paul Walsh production. And until next time, remember to stay safe, stay well, stay smiling, and most importantly, as always, remember to stay on track. Good night.